Let's set the stage by introducing the school's reigning tyrants, who are about to taste their own bitter medicine. First up on this pathetic roster is Ju Young-chil. Following him is the ringleader of this wretched crew, the infamous Park Kang-wook. These miserable excuses for humans waste their days preying on weaker classmates, shaking them down for cash in a never-ending cycle of torment. Their target for today is a hapless student named Dangu, but their reign of terror is about to shatter. Whispers have been echoing through the halls about a new transfer student, a mysterious figure who has been systematically dismantling every bully in his path. Just recently, he effortlessly neutralized a pack of thugs who dared to cause a scene in the school cafeteria. And as destiny would decree, that very same enigma has just stepped into the very classroom where these fiends are currently operating, assaulting their unfortunate first victim of the morning. As for his name, they call him Doyle. And at this very moment, he is on a hunt for the supposed top dog of this institution. He directs his gaze to the lackey before him, inquiring if he is the one in charge. But instead of providing a simple answer, this imbecile makes the fatal error of letting his insolent mouth run wild. For this transgression, he is rewarded with a backhand, a slap so viciously hard his consciousness momentarily disconnects from his body, sending him spiraling to the cold, hard floor. The female students witnessing this spectacle are left utterly speechless. A man with this level of sheer audacity, this overwhelming aura, he transcends being a mere Sigma. He is the physical embodiment of the supreme Giga Chad archetype. And to top it all off, his looks are absolutely divine. The ally of the fool who has just sent flying bolts to his feet, obviously infuriated that Doyle dares to challenge their authority on their own ground. Without a glimmer of self-preservation, he begins to spew endless nonsense, challenging the newcomer's sheer nerve. He barks at Doyle, demanding if he understands the gravity of who he is facing. Well, Doyle casually confirms he does not. After all, today is his very first day here. The henchman, seeing that his words are utterly useless, attempts to land a punch, a monumentally foolish decision. Doyle intercepts the coward's disgusting fist in mid-flight and proceeds to bend his fingers with such force that the thug releases a truly agonizing shriek of pain, as if he were being impaled by a demonic spear. While nonchalantly continuing to apply agonizing pressure, Doyle calmly poses his question once more. Are you the one in command? The goon, incapable of bearing the white-hot agony for another second, hastily gestures towards his superior, the one and only Park Kang-wook. Kang-wook is, of course, far from pleased that his own minion so quickly sold him out to save his own skin. But before he can even formulate a thought, Doyle unleashes another slap so powerful that the henchman is permanently neutralized. With the insignificant obstacle now removed, Doyle approaches Park Kang-wook and repeats the now famous question. Are you the alpha of this school? Unsurprisingly, Kang-wook commits the same grave error as his underlings did, running his mouth when silence was his only hope. And so, Doyle grants him a richly earned fist straight to the jaw, a blow that makes him reel backward in shock, rather than understanding the clear warning. This doomed fool resolves to retaliate, swinging a pathetic punch of his own. And oh my God, the sheer grace with which Doyle evades. That counter move is unbelievably slick. Now, it is Doyle's turn to unleash his true power. His fist lands with perfect precision on Kang-wook's face. The second strike also finds its intended target with ease. And to conclude this little lesson, he delivers a ferocious kick that launches the punk backward directly into the window pane, transforming his face into a crimson canvas of pain. The student onlookers are completely and utterly dumbfounded. Kang-wook is left a battered wreck, beaten, broken, and with a sense of self-worth as shattered as his nose. With the task now complete, Doyle departs with the same intimidating presence he arrived with. Dangu, his mind still struggling to comprehend the whirlwind he just saw, draws a trembling breath. He never imagined witnessing such a spectacle. Meanwhile, the social media girl in the corner is utterly captivated, her every thought now consumed by fantasies involving this titan. Later on, Dangu approaches Doyle with a grand proposition to systematically purge every single bully from the school, just as he did with such brutal efficiency in the classroom. However, Doyle isn't one to offer his services without proper payment. You must understand, he just recently arrived in Korea, and his pockets are completely empty. If Dangu wishes to command his overwhelming power, it's going to cost him. Dangu protests, claiming it's a noble endeavor, that the mighty are obligated to shield the vulnerable. That is the natural order of the world. Well, Doyle has no time for such naive idealism, nor does he possess the patience to debate these philosophies. His terms are brutally simple: no payment, no service. But Dangu is at his wit's end and makes one final plea. He and his friends are trapped in a nightmare of an existence. Not a single sunrise comes without the promise of another beating. The most twisted part is that if they dare report it to the faculty, the torment they endure only intensifies tenfold. For Dangu, each day is like a journey through an endless, suffocating void, devoid of any light or salvation. But that changed yesterday. Watching Doyle obliterate those thugs as if they were mere insects ignited the first glimmer of hope he had felt in what seemed like an eternity. So he begs with every fiber of his being. But Doyle's resolve remains as solid as stone. He understands Dangu's desperation, but he establishes a cold, hard fact. A man requires capital to simply exist. And on top of that, he has his own mountain of personal crises to overcome. Hearing Doyle speak so pragmatically about money, Dangu is reminded of all the tormentors who beat him into submission just to extract currency from his pockets. And so, the poor boy finally erupts in a burst of sheer frustration. Sick and tired of being manipulated by others solely for financial gain, it appears Doyle has no alternative but to reveal his own dire predicament. You see, Doyle's father is the supreme commander of the world's most elite assassin syndicate, an organization known only as Blackhead, and Doyle was forged in its crucible. But some time ago, his parents' union dissolved, due to his father being an utterly toxic individual who embraced a path of chauvinism and consistently brought his mother to tears. Thus, with no other recourse available, he and his younger sibling fled to Korea with their mother, without seeking their father's consent for this exodus. This decision, of course, ignited a furious rage within their patriarch, who, in a petty display of vengeance, froze every financial account tied to their names, leaving them completely and utterly broke. Though Doyle had envisioned residing in Korea's most opulent skyscraper, that grand ambition evaporated into thin air without the necessary funds. With his tale concluded, he turns to leave, explaining today is his job interview at Burger King, and it is an opportunity he absolutely cannot afford to lose. As he's revealing all of this, that same TikTok girl who has been completely smitten by Doyle is secretly listening in from just around the corner. Dangu, meanwhile, is unsure whether he should accept this outlandish narrative. But then again, this mysterious guy doesn't strike him as someone who would craft such elaborate lies. In any case, Dangu extends an offer of 50,000 won for every single target he neutralizes. Well, that proposal is sufficient to halt Doyle in his tracks. Dangu worries if his offer was perhaps too meager, and considers if he should have proposed a higher amount. But defying all of his assumptions, Doyle accepts the contract without a moment's hesitation. Meanwhile, the TikTok admirer continues to gaze at Doyle with pure adoration. Later, we find a pack of delinquents lounging beneath a pavilion. They've intercepted the rumor that Park Kong-wook was utterly humiliated by some mysterious transfer student. This large individual here is astonished that one lone newcomer managed to defeat Kong-wook and his two cronies all by himself. As for this heavy-set goon's introduction, his name is Park Ju-young, the captain of the judo club. Park Kong-wook served as a valuable asset to them, shaking down others for money and paying tribute to this big guy. But now, this fatty worries that his enormous gut will no longer be satisfied with pizza, since their primary revenue stream has been abruptly severed. And then we have another portly fellow who echoes the same concerns. His name is Park Judong, the vice captain of the esteemed judo club. They are now plotting to eliminate this new transfer student, a newcomer who clearly lacks a sense of self-preservation, but appears they won't need to expend any energy locating Doyle, because he has just strode directly into their domain, seeking a personal confrontation with these very cretins. We also see Dangu lurking nearby, concealed behind a BoJack Horseman mask. Before Doyle initiates the confrontation, Dangu briefs him on just how formidable these thugs truly are. Kong-wook was merely their subordinate, whereas these individuals are the genuine threat. They are regarded as the reigning kings of Samoan High School, the judo titans Park Ju-hyung and Park Ju-dong. They are aspiring to become national-level athletes, so they meticulously maintain clean records throughout their school tenure and delegate all their illicit activities to Kong-wook. Kong-wook is the one who generates their income by tormenting others, and should Kong-wook fail to deliver a sufficient amount, they simply beat the absolute hell out of it. But as you can already guess, such detailed introductions are utterly meaningless to a being like Doyle. His only concern is whether these guys are his designated targets. We also observe that the TikTok admirer who has fallen so deeply for Doyle is currently in the company of the judo twins and still appears to be completely fixated on him. She's rewatching the footage she secretly captured of him on a list. Her name is Seo Mina, for the record. She's utterly entranced, unable to think of anything else. Seeing her so engrossed in her phone, Jadong gets curious about what holds her attention so completely. Whatever she's watching, he demands to see it as well. But the lady shuts him down with a firm refusal. At that exact moment, we witness Doyle arriving like a force of nature, delivering a bone-shattering knee strike directly to Judong's face. The force of the blow is catastrophic, and that behemoth is instantly rendered unconscious from a single decisive hit. The other heavy-set twin immediately charges toward Doyle, but he stays perfectly calm and collected, as if he feels no fear whatsoever. His completely unfazed demeanor momentarily confuses the brute, who wonders if Doyle has reinforcements lying in wait to give him such confidence. But before the fatty can fully comprehend the situation, he is rocked by a fist delivered with such immense power that his nose bursts open like a ripe, crimson fruit. But the punishment is about to become far more savage for this poor lout. Doyle swings his leg with blinding velocity, targeting the brute's most vulnerable area with pinpoint accuracy. That unholy blow is so completely overwhelming that it quite literally shatters the poor man's jewels. The resulting explosion of agony is so profound that the fool's very spirit momentarily vacates his mortal shell, because the pain is simply beyond human endurance. With a final concussive punch to the head, Doyle concludes the battle right there. Mina, on the other hand, is practically trembling with excitement watching this alpha male utterly demolish all of these pathetic obstacles. And yet again, she can hardly contain her intense desire to be claimed by him. With the two targets eliminated, Doyle secures 50,000 won for each one. The following day, not only did Doyle increase his bankroll, but his sheer charisma also solidified his status as the most dominant force in existence. At Samun High School, flyers detailing the recent triumphs of our protagonist are now being circulated, which serves as a very clear warning to all the other bullies within the school. Anyone who dares to challenge the new supreme ruler of combat will surely meet their utter demise. Doyle is currently being paraded by Dangu and his allies through the halls, befitting the king that he now is. This is all to broadcast his dominance and capture as many eyes as possible. Doyle has no issues with the strategy Dangu is currently employing, as long as his payment is guaranteed. He is perfectly content, and just for the record, Doyle intends to add an extra fee for this public display. As he counts the earnings he's amassed from dismantling the thugs, he realizes that the currency he was given is not the complete sum he was initially promised. He is positive he dealt with a total of 4 individuals, which includes the 2 judo behemoths and their pathetic lackeys. He wonders if those other 2 fools are not being counted. Dangu attempts to clarify, stating that his request was only for the neutralization of the judo twins, specifically Ju-hyung and Jadong. But Doyle is in no mood to hear any excuses. He demands that Dangu produce another 100,000 won immediately. After all, Dangu comes from an affluent background, so a sum like 200,000 won is nothing more than loose change to him. Dangu suddenly freezes and questions Doyle, demanding to know how he discovered his family's financial status. What Dangu now suspects is that Doyle only ever engaged with him because this opportunist knew that his family possessed great wealth. To provide context on how Doyle acquired this piece of information, we flash back to a previous scene where a couple of Dangu's associates casually mentioned his family's riches. So Doyle simply explains that practically the entire student body is aware of his family's immense wealth. Furthermore, It was Dangu who made the initial approach to him. With that settled, Doyle demands the remaining 100,000 won that Dangu owes, and clarifies that this sum does not cover the fees for the parade. With no further argument to make, Dangu cheerfully flashes an okay gesture. We then shift our focus to Mina, who is once again captivated by the brochure, unable to resist admiring our protagonist's chiseled features. Her friend even concedes that the transfer student is undeniably handsome, and it's hardly surprising why. Every single girl in the school is fixated on his photograph in the flyer. Hearing this, Mina becomes instantly irritated and enraged. To her, it feels as if every other female is lusting after her future husband, and she simply cannot tolerate it. She forcefully confiscates the image of her beloved from one girl's possession and issues a deadly warning. Should she ever dare to cast her impure gaze upon her man again? One after another, Mina gathers every single brochure that the other girls in the classroom possess. As she concludes her sweep of the classroom, she receives a sudden notification that one of her male friends, Jang Hyun-woo, wishes to meet with her later on. Beneath a secluded bridge, we are introduced to a blonde-haired individual named Jang Hyun-woo from Cheongil-ha. This man is, in fact, the very next target that Doyle is contracted to eliminate. Regarding the introduction of this new character, Hyun-woo is celebrated as the undisputed sovereign of Southern Seoul. Then, there is another figure hailing from Iljeong High School, and he is PG, Cheol's direct subordinate as a high-ranking member of the 12 Nations. His power is, without question, immense. Doyle requests further intelligence concerning this 12 Nations syndicate that Dangu has mentioned, but Dangu insists that this is a discussion for a different time. For now, their absolute priority must be Jang Hyun-woo, because this particular adversary is someone they cannot afford to misjudge. After all, this monster has had the distinction of being crowned champion of an amateur boxing tournament not just a single time, but 3 separate times, with a physique and combat sense far exceeding any normal human. Even the judo twins, who confronted this monster as a pair, were utterly powerless against his might. Furthermore, the most terrifying aspect of Jang Hyun-woo is the simple fact that he is sadistic by his very nature. To put it simply, if this fiend locks his sights onto a target, he ensures that he will torment and push his victim to their absolute breaking point. He is so vicious that his victims would rather choose death than suffer the humiliation he inflicts upon them. And once his temper truly ignites, there is no predicting what horrors he might unleash. As a precautionary measure, Dangu intends to observe the impending battle from a safe distance, and should the situation spiral out of control, he will ensure that he contacts the authorities without delay. But before this motor mouth can finish his endless ramble, Doyle has already departed, fully prepared to dismantle his next targets. We then return to Hyun-woo himself, and we see that Mina is also present in his company. Hyun-woo has just finished brutalizing her male companions because she failed to answer his phone call in a timely manner. But Mina couldn't care less about these individuals and outright refuses to acknowledge them as her associates. The unfortunate young men who endured a savage beating on her behalf can only silently curse her very existence. Now, returning to the primary reason for this summons, Hyun-woo desires for her to accompany him on a date. He even vows to provide her with the most incredible time of her life during their time together. But it seems his romantic ambitions will have to be postponed, as a glass bottle is currently hurtling directly toward his head. A special delivery from Doyle. Hyun-woo swiftly ducks to avoid it, while Doyle lets out a sigh of mild annoyance, since his projectile missed its target. Now he must engage this fool directly, which he finds to be a tedious chore. Mina immediately starts to blush upon seeing Doyle once more, while Hyun-woo is absolutely seething with rage and screams, wanting to know who in the hell this newcomer thinks he is. Mina, in the meantime, begins to harbor the delusion that this man has arrived to rescue her. At this point, even Doyle is noticing this unhinged woman appearing everywhere he happens to be, and to dismiss it as mere coincidence would be utterly foolish. The only logical conclusion that forms in his mind is that she must be tracking his every move. not to mention the fact that she perpetually stares at him with an unsettling intensity. So, he finally decides to confront her directly. He grabs her by the jaw and makes his intentions perfectly clear, while he has no idea who in the hell she is. If her purpose here is to cause him any trouble, she will find herself facing a grim fate. But this deranged woman is more than willing to be choked and eliminated at the hands of our protagonist. She explicitly grants him her permission to do so. Let's not forget about Hyun-woo, who is absolutely livid to witness our protagonist laying a hand on the woman he desires. In a pure fit of rage, he clenches his fist and rockets toward Doyle with blinding speed. The punch he is about to throw is his signature technique. His velocity is so immense that even Dangoo, merely observing from afar, is losing his mind. But Hyun-woo's assault is abruptly halted by a projectile of saliva. Someone has just spit directly at him, while he successfully shields his face from being soiled by that disgusting fluid. His luck runs out when Doyle swings his leg and lands a perfectly placed kick directly into his solar plexus. The impact is devastating, leaving Hyun-woo desperately gasping for oxygen. While he is stunned and disoriented from the powerful kick, Doyle decides it is time to deliver another savage blow. This time, his intention is to shatter the fool's skull with a stool that he now brandishes as a weapon. The poor bastard has no time to evade the incoming assault. First, it was a mouthful of spit, and now Doyle has quite literally materialized that stool from thin air. But it turns out the stool was nothing more than a simple feint. Doyle only uses it as a diversion before unleashing a catastrophic uppercut. Not only is the blow excruciatingly painful, but it is also deeply humiliating. Hyun-woo is truly starting to lose his composure at this point. In a blind rage, he throws a punch with the speed of a striking viper, but the strike merely whistles past its target as Doyle leans back ever so slightly, avoiding it with practiced ease. Though the punch was incredibly swift and accurate, it was so fast that the force of it literally ruffled a few strands of Doyle's immaculate hair. Doyle remains completely unfazed, without a moment of hesitation. He clenches his own fist and drives a punch directly into Hyun-woo's midsection. That gut-wrenching blow is so powerful that Hyun-woo can immediately feel his ribs begin to fracture. But Doyle reassures him that his bones are not yet broken. The real damage comes when he viciously slams a stool squarely against Hyun-woo's ribcage. And this time, it literally does the trick. The poor boy's ribs shatter, and the air is violently forced from his lungs. The once feared warrior, hailed as the king of this entire district, is now reduced to nothing more than a broken, whimpering mess. His cronies can only stand there, completely paralyzed, with no comprehension of what in the hell they just witnessed. The young man who is being tormented is also in a state of absolute shock. Hyun-woo, on the other hand, is desperately fighting to draw breath. Now, for that, Doyle has concluded his lesson with his fists. There's only one final thing that needs to be communicated, but he momentarily forgets the exact words he was supposed to deliver. Dangoo had instructed him to issue a stern warning to the bullies, telling them to cease their harassment of innocents or suffer severe repercussions. Since Doyle cannot recall the precise phrasing, he decides to improvise something with a bit more impact, something far more chilling and unforgettable. Doyle makes his threat absolutely unambiguous. If this pathetic worm ever dares to cause trouble instead of living in obscurity, or if he acts up and dares to stand before him ever again, Doyle swears on his very soul that he will obliterate everything this cretin holds dear, and after tearing them apart, piece by piece, he will ensure that he extinguishes the life of every single one of them, while Dangoo is having a complete mental breakdown over the terrifying threat Doyle just delivered. Mina, conversely, is going absolutely wild, with her brain flooded by an overwhelming rush of affection. She's losing her mind. All she desires in this world is to be his. The next day dawns, and inside a private training facility, another crew of bullies is engaged in their workout, while sadistically torturing their latest victim. Suddenly, a lackey bursts in with grave tidings that one of their subordinates, Hyun-woo, got his ass handed to him by someone from Samun High School. The men in the gym are not at all pleased to hear this development. After all, Samun High School occupies the very bottom of the food chain. It is inconceivable that those lowly peasants are attempting to revolt against their superiors Among these figures is Jong from Iljeong High School, a school which holds the 4th rank. The next day, Jong musters his underlings from Samun High, prepared to crush the faction responsible for putting Hyun-woo in the hospital. However, he observes that their attendance is surprisingly sparse, and he demands to know why. Kang-wook reports that several of their members were also hospitalized after a failed attempt to steal food in the school cafeteria. But Jong has no interest in these minor players. He wants an update on the twin judo behemoths. Once again, Kang-wook brings forth more terrible news. Their family jewels were ruptured, and they too are currently hospitalized. Jong is absolutely enraged and unleashes a punishing blow directly into Kang-wook's stomach, as far as Jong is concerned. The report this man is giving him is nothing but pure fantasy, and he is not in the proper state of mind for ridiculous stories. But the unfortunate messenger insists that he is telling the truth. It is understandable that Jong is unaware of the full situation, as some time has passed since he last paid them a visit. However, his subordinate's continued insistence only serves to fuel his anger, and he prepares to strike the poor soul once more. It is at this moment that Kang-wook finally blurts out that the transfer student was the one behind all of this chaos. Every single recent calamity involving their syndicate members can be traced back to this one specific, mysterious newcomer. At last, Jong fury begins to cool, eclipsed by an intense, burning curiosity. He now has a desperate need to meet this new player, who has caused such widespread panic. Meanwhile, Mina, as per her usual routine, is admiring a video she clandestinely captured of Doyle eating his meal in the cafeteria. In the recording, he spots her filming him and brusquely forces the camera down. We then return our focus to the classroom where she is currently sitting. The instructor is searching for new recruits to join the film club. The moment the announcement is made, a wave of students eagerly shoots their hands into the air, desperate to become members. The teacher is delighted by their response, believing the film club must be incredibly popular this year. However, Mina has an entirely different interpretation of events. She cannot comprehend why these bookworms, who normally spend their days buried in their textbooks, are suddenly displaying such fervent interest. She already has a vivid fantasy of herself walking hand in hand with the man of her dreams. The film club is considered the most prestigious of all extracurricular activities, and she will not allow any other woman to steal her rightful position. Meanwhile, in another part of the school, Doyle is also preoccupied with thoughts of Mina. He is perplexed as to why she is constantly shadowing him and is determined to uncover her true intentions. The only piece of intel Dangu possesses is that she was born in Shinlim-dong. Since Doyle has no recollection of her from his previous life, he begins to wonder if she could be an operative dispatched by his father. Dangu diverts the conversation, asking which club Doyle intends to join. In a surprising twist, Doyle reveals his interest in joining the anime club. Naturally, this choice makes absolutely no sense to Dangu. The anime club is a sacred sanctuary for dedicated otakus, and Doyle is the absolute antithesis of a typical otaku, who does nothing but indulge in degeneracy. It is at this very moment that Jong appears, flanked by his contingent of lackeys. Spotting our protagonist in the distance, Kang-wook confirms that this is indeed Doyle, the transfer student who is responsible for rupturing the judo twins' manhood. Jong becomes increasingly agitated by how his foolish subordinate keeps bringing up their testicles. It's just plain unsettling. Nevertheless, Jong redirects his focus back to Doyle. He advances, with his entire crew following closely behind it. While Dangu is still blabbering on about the anime club's activities, Doyle suddenly catches sight of the approaching gang, and without a single wasted motion, he bolts toward them with the explosive speed of a jungle predator. Kang-wook begins to tremble in fear upon seeing Doyle charging directly at their position. While Kang-wook was already aware this man was unhinged, he never imagined he was this level of insane. Witnessing the prey charge directly at the predators, Jong immediately adopts a fighting stance, prepared for the ensuing conflict. He makes the first move, throwing a punch, but his strike fails to find his target. He tries again, yet Doyle sidesteps the blow with effortless, fluid movements, completely bypassing Jong in the process. Jong is left in a state of utter confusion. Why did this strange man simply ignore them and continue running past? The answer to his question becomes apparent when we spot Mina in the distance. Doyle catches her completely off guard with his abrupt arrival, which causes her to react in a panic. All the brochures she had been clutching are sent fluttering into the air as he tackles her to the ground, landing directly on top of her. While this moment might feel like a scene of pure romance, straight out of a drama for the delusional young woman, Doyle is focused entirely on business. He immediately begins his interrogation, demanding to know the reason for her constant stalking and her incessant habit of photographing him. Furthermore, he wants to know if his father was the one who hired her to shadow him. Of course, this hopelessly infatuated lady completely misinterprets the entire encounter, becoming convinced that Doyle is preparing to introduce her to his family. Meanwhile, let's not forget about Jong Byum, who appears absolutely incensed after being so flagrantly disregarded. The man lunges toward Doyle with the full intention of smashing his skull in. But our protagonist is incredibly fast. In a mere fraction of a second, he seizes the attacker's leg and forcefully redirects. It appears that Jong Byum has at last succeeded in capturing Doyle's full attention, and that is a very dangerous development for him. The thug throws a punch, but Doyle ducks beneath it, avoiding it without effort. Jong Byum refuses to give up. One strike after another, he continues his relentless onslaught. Despite his desperate attempts, not a single one of his blows manages to land. Doyle, on the other hand, determines that it is now time to retaliate with a strike of his own. But it seems fate has different plans. Just as he is poised to attack, the student council president of Samun High School steps in, bringing the conflict to a halt. His name is Wang Du-ju, and he orders them to cease their hostilities. Jong Byum is far from happy to see this old man interrupting his fun. Regardless, he casually lights up a cigarette, but not before issuing one final, ominous threat toward Doyle, warning him of the dire fate that awaits him on the morrow. With that, he departs along with his entourage. Then, Doyle does something absolutely unimaginable, something that no one could have possibly predicted. He quite literally smashes Jong Byum over the head with a stool, right in front of the student council president. And that one single blow is all it takes to knock the poor guy out instantly. On the sidelines, Kong Wook begins to sweat profusely, absolutely certain that Doyle has just signed his own death warrant by attacking Jong Byum. Even Dangu, who had literally been bankrolling Doyle to perform these very actions, is left in a state of utter disbelief. As far as he knows, Doyle hasn't even faced a mid-tier boss up to this point, and now he has gone and drawn the attention of a true monster. We then cut to a grimy, derelict apartment, where a heavily tattooed man is inflicting unspeakable torture upon his captives. His session of torment is abruptly cut short when his phone buzzes with the news concerning Jong Byum being utterly defeated. This man is also from Iljeong High School, and his name is I'm Jong Chong. We finally get more details about the notorious syndicate known as the 12 Nations. They're a coalition of the 12 most feared delinquents in the entire nation, infamous for their sheer brutality. But to someone like Doyle, the 12 Nations are nothing more than a gang of common thugs. He cannot grasp why everyone makes such a monumental fuss over them. At this moment, there is a threat far greater than those 12 delinquents. The disciplinary action he is currently being forced to endure, courtesy of Wang Du-ju. He is condemned to scrubbing the school's bathrooms for a full week. The teacher who is supervising his punishment is secretly reveling in this chain of events, delighted that this insolent newcomer is finally getting a taste of some much-needed discipline. Meanwhile, Dangu is desperately trying to impress upon Doyle that the 12 Nations are an enemy that should not be trifled with. By raising his hand against Jong Byum, Doyle has now directly challenged them. And now, the entirety of Iljeong High School will be seeking retribution. Iljeong is merciless. They do not stand idly by when the blood of one of their own has been shed. But Doyle remains utterly unimpressed. As far as he is concerned, no one can truly be considered ruthless until they have severed a limb or two. Besides, those fools were the ones who approached him and instigated the conflict. Still, he holds Dangu partially responsible for dragging him into this chaotic mess to begin with. After all, it was Dangu who initially requested that these bullies be eliminated. Now, this entire convoluted situation is truly starting to get on Doyle's last nerve. He is completely fed up with this entire charade. So fed up, in fact, that he makes the decision to terminate the contract entirely. He would much rather find a legitimate part-time job and earn some actual money than continue to engage in this pointless and perpetual cycle of violence. Dangu is not at all pleased with this sudden change of heart. He reminds Doyle that his current compensation far exceeds any part-time wage. Plus, there's even a severance package involved, which is an incredibly generous bonus. But Doyle remains resolute. He tells Dangu to scram. With no other options, Dangu reluctantly departs. As he trudges down the street, he remembers being struck by one of the school's many bullies. At that moment, Dangu had simply stared back at the aggressor with defiance. And when the bully recognized that Dangu was now associated with Doyle, he had immediately begun to perspire and tried to de-escalate the situation. Now, Dangu feels as if his brief period of bliss has reached its untimely conclusion. He is now forced to return to the hellish reality that he has endured for so many years. He recalls the fleeting moments of pure happiness, being able to freely enjoy time with his companions, doing whatever he pleased. No one was there to order him around, extort him for money, or beat him for no reason. But it now seems he has no alternative but to re-embrace that infernal existence. As he walks, a mysterious figure suddenly materializes, casually draping an arm around his shoulder as if they were lifelong companions. Dangu has no clue who this person is, but the stranger seems to know him quite well. He identifies Dangu as the rumored confidant of Doyle. By now, Dangu is acutely aware that events are about to take a disastrous turn for him. Later, that same individual drags Dangu before Jongbyeom, who wastes no time in questioning him about Doyle's current location. Naturally, Dangu maintains that he has no information whatsoever. His denial only serves to further enrage Jongbyeom. So, without a moment's consideration, a blow so savage it erupts his nose in a fountain of crimson, launching his spectacles into the air. Jongbyeom's command is simple, a chilling ultimatum to place a call and bring that monster to this very spot. Shaking uncontrollably, Dangu fumbles with the phone, but in his terror, he connects not with Doyle, but with an emergency hotline. The thug in the crimson jacket immediately detects this deception and instantly threatens to extinguish the very life from poor Dangu's body. Realizing his grave error, they restart their brutal assault, holding nothing back. They pulverize him until he can do nothing but accept his fate like a loyal, broken hound. In a stark contrast, the scene shifts to Doyle, who is completely unbothered, attending an interview at a Burger King for a menial part-time job, all while the man who hired him is enduring a life-altering beating. The manager inquires about Doyle's personal interests or any unique talents he might bring to the table. While Doyle admits to having no prior experience in customer service, he proclaims expertise in close-quarters combat and the art of dagger throwing. However, the manager misunderstands, asking why on earth he would be throwing swagger. Doyle coldly corrects him, stating he was referring to throwing daggers. Upon hearing this, the interviewer becomes certain that Doyle is a complete lunatic, despite his outwardly composed and normal appearance just moments before. Regardless, the manager concedes that Doyle's listed skill set is undeniably a fascinating one. But regrettably, they have absolutely no need for an employee who can hurl blades. He voices his serious reservations about whether Doyle would be a suitable match for any role within their establishment. Just then, two hulking figures storm into the establishment. One of them is clutching his abdomen in excruciating agony. He laments that the burger he consumed from this very location has completely ravaged his digestive system. He even presents a photograph of a nondescript burger, insisting it originated from this very restaurant. The image horrifyingly displays a massive cockroach embedded within the patty, undeniable evidence that their food is contaminated. At this revelation, the other patrons, who had been placidly eating their meals, frantically begin to inspect their own orders to verify this terrifying claim. But it quickly becomes apparent that it's just a benign black olive. The store manager attempts to pacify the enraged customer, carefully maintaining a respectful demeanor to prevent any further chaos. However, the man is completely deaf to reason and simply continues his tirade about how the vile burger annihilated his insides. At that moment, Doyle nonchalantly strolls past the belligerent man, subtly brushing his shoulder against the brute's. The enraged man shoots him a look that could kill, but Doyle's expression remains one of utter indifference. Meanwhile, we return to the scene of Dangu's interrogation. They inspect his mobile device, and swiftly deduce that Dangu doesn't even possess Doyle's contact information. Conclusive proof that they are not, in fact, allies. Jongbyum, infuriated by his utter failure to locate Doyle, can't suppress his seething frustration. He had been patiently waiting outside the school's primary entrance this entire time. Yet somehow, they completely failed to spot Doyle. Furious, Jongbyum redirects his rage back towards Dangu. After delivering one final, brutal kick, he departs with his contingent of thugs. We then shift our perspective to Iljeong Hai's top enforcers and their commander, Im Yong-chun. Positioned next to him is his trusted comrade, Choi Hyo-chong. They are discussing their two associates, who were dispatched to retrieve food for the entire group from Burger Camp, but they have yet to make their return. So, they resolve to investigate, now that they are conveniently passing by Burger Camp. It is at this very moment that, completely unknown to them, Doyle happens to walk right past them. But since they do not know what Doyle looks like, they simply continue on their path. Once they step inside the restaurant, they discover their two comrades who were sent to get food are now unconscious on the floor, having been beaten to a pulp. Naturally, Jong-chan is incandescent with rage to see his subordinates so utterly defeated. He frantically scans the area to identify the perpetrator of this assault, but predictably, the culprit is nowhere to be found. It is then that Jong-chan recalls the one individual he passed, just outside Burger King, and that his shoulder was stained with fresh blood. So, he immediately barks an order to his underlings to capture the punk who just went past, the one wearing the distinctive Samun High uniform. To convey the absolute urgency of the situation, he screams this command at the top of his lungs. We then return to Doyle, who is casually strolling down the sidewalk, contemplating how he has already depleted his entire monthly allowance. Even if he manages to secure a part-time job now, his first paycheck will not arrive until the following month. Therefore, he requires a client who can provide immediate payment. And when considering the prospect of upfront cash, only one individual comes to mind, Dangu, who, as destiny would have it, is standing directly in his path. It seems Dangu was deliberately making his way towards Burger King to check on Doyle's well-being, and he is greatly relieved to see him unharmed. Before Doyle can inquire about the severe injuries Dangu has clearly sustained, those very same fiends arrive on the scene. The heavy-set one identifies himself as Choi Hyo-chong from Iljeong and demands that Doyle pay attention. He continues to bellow from his disgusting mouth, commanding our protagonist to approach them. Before the situation can escalate further, Doyle needs confirmation from Dangu on whether the 50,000 won per head contract is still active. Of course, this question brings a faint smile to Dangu's face, though he does specify that there will be no severance package this time. Meanwhile, the brutish fatty becomes increasingly agitated and infuriated that Doyle continues to ignore him. So, the fool rushes towards our hero, only to be violently slammed face first into the unforgiving pavement. The impact is catastrophic, and it becomes even more severe when Doyle unleashes a merciless barrage of punches, one after another, directly into the fiend's already broken face. The cowards who accompanied this brute feel a primal terror seize their hearts, while our champion remains as calm and collected as a winter's night. And for this masterful display of combat, he also intends to build Dangu for a performance bonus at a later time. After neutralizing those worthless thugs, the two of them sit down for a meal of noodles together, where Doyle once again brings up the subject of his performance bonus. He then makes a bold proposition of 5 million won, vowing that in exchange, he will completely dismantle Iljeong High within a single week. Hearing this audacious proposal, Dangu erupts into laughter, as if Doyle had just delivered the most hilarious joke in human history. First and foremost, Dangu demands to know why he is requesting such a massive sum of money. Doyle calmly recounts the same narrative about his father, freezing every single one of their financial accounts. And just as before, Dangu still struggles to accept this fantastic story. Anyhow, Doyle wishes to pose a question of his own. He wants to understand why Dangu chooses to live such a pathetic existence. After all, he is the heir to a wealthy family and possesses every advantage. So why does he willingly subject himself to constant beatings? Doyle has already conducted his own investigation into Dangu's lineage, and their influence is truly staggering. All Dangu would need to do is enroll in a private institution that is completely devoid of any delinquents. Furthermore, why don't Dangu's parents express concern when they see their own son so badly injured? Well, Dangu explains that they are both currently overseas on business. Eventually, Doyle decides to depart after gathering some food to go. After they bid each other farewell, Doyle heads out. It is during his journey that he crosses paths with that same unhinged girl, Mina. We then cut back to Jong Chan, who is staring at the horrific aftermath of his subordinate's utter defeat. The man is absolutely seething, and he immediately dials the number of Kong Wook. Said, Kong Wook is currently occupying a toilet stall when he receives the call, which sends a jolt of terror through his very soul. We are then given more background on one of the three most notorious delinquent high schools in all of Seoul. They hold dominion over the entire southwestern district of Seoul, and this institution is known as Iljeong High. While some students attend due to their financial struggles, the vast majority of them possess extensive juvenile criminal records, or are simply so deranged that they cannot be accepted into normal schools. This is precisely why it is known as the most wretched school in existence. It is so corrupt that students can be seen openly smoking on school property. In fact, the school has an officially sanctioned smoking zone, where the entire student body congregates to indulge their vices. And as for the teaching staff, they are completely at the mercy of the student population. They readily accept bribes and conveniently ignore all of the criminal enterprises taking place within the school's walls. There are even whispers that the principal himself is a retired gangster. However, the single greatest threat at Iljeong High is a man named PG Cheol, one of the fabled members of the 12 Nations. For a very long time, Iljeong High was a chaotic battlefield of warring factions, but Cheol unified them all through his sheer, overwhelming power. These days, he manages operations that include vehicle theft, insurance scams, extortion, and threatening local businesses, and even more unspeakable crimes, including assassinations. We absorb all of this information as we stand just outside Iljeong High, because Doyle is preparing to launch a full-scale invasion. While he is armed to the teeth with a high-powered rifle, the ever-comical Dangu is once again sporting his ridiculous LGTV donkey mask. More so than the outlandish mask, Dangu is far more preoccupied with the enormous firearm Doyle is wielding. Doyle reassures him that it is only equipped with non-lethal rubber rounds. After all, human bodies are a renewable resource. The more of them you can preserve, the better. As they advance, Dangu makes one last desperate attempt to persuade Doyle to abandon this plan before it's too late. Reports of violence at Iljeong High are so commonplace that if a civilian were to contact the police, they would simply dismiss it. But rather than discouraging Doyle, this information actually brings him a sense of relief. It plays directly into his hands. But Doyle's disturbing sense of calm only serves to heighten Dangu's anxiety. Soon, they encounter a pair of students. Doyle immediately demands to know if either of them is the infamous Cheol. But instead of a straightforward reply, the thugs immediately adopt a hostile posture, and as one could easily predict, Doyle possesses no tolerance for pointless banter. Without a shred of hesitation, he fires a rubber bullet directly into one of their faces. The other student, standing beside his now incapacitated friend, charges forward to throw a punch. But Doyle neutralizes him with a single, perfectly timed kick. As if that weren't enough, he then shoots the fiend in the foot, before utilizing the rifle itself as a bludgeoning instrument, crashing it down upon the man's shoulder, instantly shattering his collarbone. The poor wretch can do nothing but whimper in agony on the ground, while Doyle stands over him like the Grim Reaper incarnate, demanding that he deliver Cheol to him immediately. Meanwhile, we shift our focus to Jong Byum, who is still nursing his aching neck from the blow Doyle delivered to him earlier. Right now, he is engaged in his routine duties, extorting protection money from other students. Suddenly, his associate in the red jacket comes sprinting in, gasping for air, as he reports that the monster from Samun High has arrived. Naturally, this news immediately captures Jong Byum's undivided attention, because he was just contemplating his next move against him. Elsewhere, Kong Wook is seen, battered and broken, and is currently being interrogated by Jong Chan. Before Jong Chan can inflict any further damage, he receives an urgent call from one of his underlings about an intruder roaming their territory with a firearm in his possession. As is his custom, Jong Chan screams into the phone, demanding more details about this supposed infiltrator. Kan-wook, on the other hand, is consumed by a feeling of utter despair. He has no idea how he became entangled in this mess, or why he is even being subjected to this torture. Back to Doyle. He continues to mow down every single fool who dares to obstruct his path. Eventually, they happen upon two female students and question them, asking if either of them happens to be the elusive PG Chio. Unsurprisingly, the young women deny any such affiliation. After all, PG Chio is a male, not a female. Doyle, however, blames Dangu for failing to provide this crucial detail earlier. It is at this point that Doyle finally spots something, or rather, someone of actual significance. It is, of course, Jong Byum. The man finds it somewhat commendable that Doyle possessed the sheer audacity to walk directly into the lion's den. However, these so-called lions begin to visibly flinch and cower in fear the moment Doyle rests his finger on the trigger of his weapon. But it is their lucky day, as Doyle's rifle is now completely empty, feeling as though he has been mocked and humiliated yet again. Jong Byum lunges at Doyle in a furious rage, desperate to land a single blow. But his wild swing is completely futile. In that split second, he sees Doyle reaching into his jacket, assuming he is about to produce another weapon. But it was all just a clever misdirection. The very next thing he registers is being doubled over in agony, having been struck by a brutal knee directly to his stomach. Meanwhile, inside the annex building of Iljeong High, a few teachers observe the dozens of badly beaten students littering the school grounds. One of the rookie teachers, clearly shaken, proposes that they call the police. But the veteran teacher, standing beside her, rejects the notion, explaining that this is just another typical day at Iljeong High. Even if they did file a report, the police would not even bother to show up. Not to mention, the principal has given explicit orders to the entire faculty to refrain from interfering in student conflicts, because any involvement on their part only exacerbates the situation. That being said, even this seasoned educator acknowledges that today's events are completely without precedent. He has never witnessed anything of this magnitude before, not since the infamous PG Cheol incident. To add to the growing mystery, the school's surveillance systems are offline, and even the cellular signals are being deliberately jammed. Something deeply unsettling is unfolding, and he is yet to piece it all together. We then cut to a monstrously built individual, effortlessly pressing a 200-kilogram barbell, while his entourage of lackeys looks on in pure amazement. After downing an entire protein shake in one gulp, he finally turns his attention to the underlings standing before him, and demands to know their reason for being there. One of them quickly relays the urgent message from the higher-ups. All high-ranking members are to converge on the school immediately, because an unknown intruder has breached their territory. As for this colossal figure, he is Park Jinju, peering into Jong Byum's history. The young phenom was once hailed as a prodigy by all of his mentors. He dominated every opponent and was the most savage fighter in his crew, by defeating 6 opponents simultaneously. One might even say the boy was born with a God-given talent for violence, and a combat instinct that left everyone completely speechless. He was the very definition of raw power. Jong Byum evolved into a true terror throughout his middle school years, and every single person who ever dared to challenge his supremacy was forced to taste the bitter agony of defeat, as he utterly and completely humiliated them. Jong Byum possessed a profound superiority complex, and viewed those weaker than him as nothing more than insects. It was as if he existed in a reality where he believed only the most powerful had the right to rule the weak, and he derived immense pleasure from tormenting those who could never hope to stand against him. Jong Byum's reign of terror continued unchallenged until he finally encountered a true demon, Doyle, who, at his current level, effortlessly evaded his most powerful strikes and shamed the so-called prodigy with his blinding speed. Jong Byum has never been so utterly enraged in his entire life, and surrendering to his fury, he lunges forward to deliver another desperate blow, wondering how his legendary fists are failing him so completely. In response, his adversary gives him a harsh lesson in reality, in the most degrading manner imaginable. Doyle smacks him across the face with a simple broom, casually demonstrating the vast difference in reach between their respective attacks. Scrambling back to his feet, The arrogant Jongbyum wipes the blood from his lips, completely unable to accept the nightmare unfolding before his very eyes. Frustrated beyond measure, he unleashes another attack from a low angle, a vicious hook that his opponent ducks beneath with perfect timing, countering with a devastating uppercut that nearly sends the bald-headed fool's consciousness into the next dimension. Doyle sends him crashing to the unforgiving ground. Jongbyum's sandal goes flying as he stumbles over his own feet. To add insult to injury, Doyle rushes in with a lightning-fast kick. Miraculously, Jongbyum manages to dodge the attack, but he still cannot comprehend how his monstrous adversary closed the distance so quickly. This complete unknown, whom no one had ever even heard of, was nonchalantly beating the ever-loving hell out of him. Doyle mercilessly attempted a full-power soccer kick just now, instilling a profound, primal fear deep within Jongbyum's soul. The reason is brutally simple. If that kick had connected with his jaw, it would have ended his life right then and there. Doyle compliments his opponent's reflexes, confirming that his intention was to permanently cripple Jongbyum, reminding the bald-headed fool of his own philosophy. Doyle emphasizes that no amount of begging will save him from the punishment he so richly deserves. Witnessing this brutal spectacle unfold, Dangu is left completely speechless. Doyle considers whether he should perhaps ease up on the punishment. But what will be the point of that? Because this absolute psychopath is in the mood to shatter his leg. As a merciful alternative, hearing those chilling words, Jongbyum is once again haunted by his past, how he used to sadistically look down upon those weaker than himself. In a cruelly ironic twist, the roles have now been reversed, and he is now the victim of his own brutal ideology. Enraged, he attempts to unleash a powerful haymaker to strike down Doyle, an attack that his opponent meticulously sidesteps. Doyle evades yet another desperate strike, while the bloodthirsty Jongbyum continues his frantic assault. Our hero is completely untroubled. This is almost too easy for him, as he nonchalantly unleashes not just one, but a whole flurry of devastating blows into his opponent's path. Jongbyum is utterly annihilated with a final, decisive blow from Doyle's furious onslaught. The sight of his utter humiliation leaves his underlings at a complete loss for words. They are rendered mute, witnessing Jongbyum being treated like a mere plaything, choking on his own pathetic words as he lies broken on the ground. He glares up at Doyle, who looks down upon him with the most condescending expression imaginable. He proceeds to inform Jongbyum that his entire school is utterly insignificant, unable to do anything by himself. The bald-headed fool turns to his remaining lackeys, screaming at them for simply standing there motionless. Jongbyum berates them and commands every single one of them to attack Doyle simultaneously. But how could they possibly obey, seeing as they just witnessed one of the most brutal demolitions with their very own eyes? Sometime later, his superior, Zhang is angrily striding through the school's corridors. The dean of the school attempts to block their path and stop them from parading through the school, as if they own the entire establishment. But these thugs couldn't care less about his authority and simply turn their backs on him, deeming him completely unworthy of their notice. The dean calls them out for their blatant disrespect, even resorting to shouting insults at the invading delinquents. Zhang was already at his breaking point, and he is done with these games. He approaches the old man, slowly revealing his hand from his pocket, as if he is about to draw a weapon. In one swift motion, this man proceeds to stab the dean with the full force of his hidden blade, causing the other students to freeze in sheer, unadulterated terror. Zhang coldly reminds the dean that he will not get his way, simply because he is a so-called teacher. Now thoroughly humbled and with no desire to challenge them further, the dean collapses to the floor, a pool of blood forming around his body. Zhang spits on the fallen man, before redirecting his anger back to his incompetent underlings, who are now ignoring his calls. He hands the bloody weapon to one of his subordinates, ordering him to take full responsibility for the stabbing of the dean. He is so utterly ruthless that he is willing to sacrifice one of his own men for his personal transgressions. Zhang instructs the man to confiscate everyone's phone and proceed to the police station to confess to the crime. This act will result in a prison sentence of nearly 3 years. But Zhang is completely unconcerned because he will not have to face the consequences. It will simply be one of his disposable pawns. The merciless delinquent walks away from the horrific scene, and the perspective returns to Doyle's side of the story, who has has just finished crippling the absolute hell out of Jongbi. Seeing the bald-headed man laughing despite being in so much pain, Doyle wonders if he should perhaps intensify the torture. To that, Jongbi simply laughs, reminding Doyle just how badly he is messed up by challenging their supreme leader. Of course, the rest of Jongbium's lackeys all confirm this, stating that the only possible future for Doyle is certain death, as he has now stirred the hornet's nest with no possible escape route. But he literally acts as if this is just another Tuesday for him, and continues to inquire about PG Cheol as their ultimate commander. From out of nowhere, a kick comes flying towards Doyle's face. The blow connects as Dan-gu cries out for his friend. The one who delivered the strike is actually Jinju, who holds the third rank within the entire gang. Dan-gu understands the immense force behind that blow, realizing that an attack of that magnitude must have caused significant damage to someone like Doyle. Luckily, it is revealed that our hero is inhumanly fast, as his reflexes allowed him to avoid a direct hit to the head, not caring in the slightest. Doyle asks if the man standing before him is the infamous PG Cheol. Jinju, being the muscle-bound egomaniac that he is, foolishly confirms that he is, in fact, GK Cheol. Of course, even Dan-gu recognizes this as a blatant and stupid lie. The scene cuts to Busan, where a number of bodies are hanging after enduring senseless torture. Among them is a rank 4 boss, Diakin, the fiend who is responsible for having these men displayed like a grotesque art installation, comes to learn of Kim Doyle's true identity, implying that the situation is about to become even more dire. Okay, let's return to the battle between Jinju and our protagonist. The muscle-bound behemoth is shocked to find his opponent, spraying him with some kind of liquid. He unleashes a wide, powerful punch, believing an attack like that could possibly connect with his speed demon. Doyle utterly humiliates him by snapping a piece of cloth at his face, like some kind of makeshift whip. That vicious slap leaves a welt too. Once again, the rest of the lackeys are completely and utterly bewildered. They have no idea what is even happening anymore, as Doyle is beating the crap out of their bosses with a simple cleaning kit. He is an overwhelming muscular titan who holds multiple records in competitive weightlifting. Jinju lunges forward to strike him once more. Doyle casually evades the blow, which leaves a crater in the nearby wall. Then he dodges Jinju's powerful kick, further infuriating him as the battle continues. What truly enrages Jinju is his opponent's inhuman reflexes, as he is avoiding every attack like a pesky insect. Jinju believes that Doyle's stamina must be incredibly low, so a single, solid blow should be enough to put him down. But to his utter astonishment, Doyle flicks the cloth and ensnares his opponent's wrist with it, before delivering a beautiful, bone-shattering knee to his face. Jinju staggers backward, realizing that his opponent is employing dirty tactics, utilizing every tool at his disposal to gain an advantage. He tries to crush Doyle in a bear hug, but that too proves to be utterly useless. They share a brief, strange moment of stillness before Doyle shames this clown once again with his spray bottle, which, again, serves as a perfect diversion. Our hero reaps this man's soul with a jaw-shattering punch, sweeping Jinju completely off of his feet with every single blow. The muscular behemoth is losing his composure. He no longer wishes to fall for these cheap tricks. But just like all the others, he becomes overconfident and leaves himself open. Doyle uses his own jacket as a feint, temporarily blinding his opponent's vision, before flawlessly executing an extended sidekick directly to his face. And let me just say, if someone humiliated me like that, I would personally assist Elon Musk on his mission to colonize Mars and flee this planet for all eternity. The attack sends Jinju crashing to the ground for good. In his broken and pathetic state, he hurls insults at the smaller opponent, who is making a complete fool of him with every single attack. But Doyle, this man, simply cannot care less. He approaches and strikes Jinju's body precisely where it hurts the most. The brutal beatdown persists, as the sickening sound of blows connecting with Jinju's body reverberates throughout the corridor. This battle is concluded. Doyle has casually slain a muscular titan and blesses us with his perfect side profile, acting as if he has just dismantled the entire gang. Of course, the poor fool is unaware that he has just defeated an imposter and not the true leader of the syndicate. He has much more work ahead of him. Interestingly, The low-level delinquents have no idea what GKL even looks like, so they too believe he must have just defeated their supreme leader. Red Jacket, over here, knows the truth, however, and he is completely stunned that Doyle was able to display such a monstrous level of power to completely obliterate one of their most powerful fighters. Doyle turns to Dangu, demanding his special payment. This time, My Little Pony over here must inform him that he has not yet defeated the true boss. Doyle disagrees and believes that Dangu is simply trying to cheat him. As they are departing, Red Jacket is paralyzed with fear from what he has just witnessed. Let's jump a few hours into the future and witness Zhongshan's reaction to these events. I'm sure you all are dying to see that. After all, this psychopathic blonde is having a complete mental breakdown, seeing two of his top enforcers so utterly defeated. The very next day at school, the student body learns about their dean's recent stab. Zhongshan was the one responsible, and he created quite a scene. Listening to this conversation with great interest, Doyle continues to eat his lunch and realizes that Zhongshan would not have reacted so violently if he had actually defeated the real Chio. This confirms his suspicion that he must have fought a fake instead. On a separate note, Dangu is shocked that Doyle is so casually eating his lunch in the classroom, rather than in the school cafeteria. Their minor disagreement quickly moves to a different subject, with Dangu blaming himself for the harm that has befallen their school's dean. After all, he was the one who initiated the conflict with the Iljiang gang by leveraging Doyle's immense power. In any case, the students feel obligated to visit the dean and see how he is recovering. Dangu is riddled with guilt over his actions, but he wants Doyle to accompany him. But Dangu is a coward and doesn't want to go by himself. Using her stunning physique as a tool to persuade Doyle, Mina prepares to join their little expedition. Dangu questions why she is loitering around the anime club with a group of degenerates while wearing an outfit like that. It turns out she is only there for Doyle. This woman is on another level of desperation for our protagonist, and she simply cannot control herself. That is the entire reason she joined the anime club. Hilariously, Doyle pulls a handgun and points it directly at her head. This man knows that she is a complete degenerate, but she is even more unhinged than he thought, and interprets this as some kind of twisted fantasy coming from it. The firearm is in fact real, and Doyle is more than willing to allow his classmates to examine the weapon, as long as they are willing to pay him handsomely for it. Even Dangu is fed up with the utter absurdity of this manhwa and breaks the fourth wall just to share in our collective disbelief. Fast forwarding to the scene at the hospital, the dean is advised to rest for a significant period. Fortunately, his wound was not as severe as it could have been. Being the dedicated headmaster that he is, he simply cannot permit himself to rest when there is so much to be done back at his school. He assures them that he will return to the school within 1 week. Hearing this, his wife reminds him that he should not simply ignore his injuries, because he is clearly in need of medical attention. By the way, Dangu did end up going with Mina to check on the principal. Unfortunately, the beautiful girl only has eyes for Doyle, who did not even end up coming with them, and instead jumped from the 3rd story of the dam building, like he is Tom Cruise or some other action hero. Mina is seized with rage, declaring that the hospital is a complete waste of time if the transfer student is not present. Yeah, I am now certain that this girl is 69 red flags rolled into one person. Even Dangu thinks her behavior is completely absurd. He tells her to go home if she is just going to fool around. But Mina has the audacity to call him annoying for his concern. Dangu grips the handle of the door, where he overhears the dean speaking with his wife. They speak of their strong marriage that has spanned 2 decades, which means that she can always tell if he is in pain. As for our protagonist, he ultimately did decide to come along, remembering a previous encounter he had with the dean. It was the time when he got into trouble and was given a punishment, but when the dean discovered that Doyle lived alone with his mother and younger sister, he understood that the boy was the sole man of his household. He let the boy off with his personal phone number, vowing to assist him in his time of need. It was that simple act of kindness that resonated with Doyle, because the dean wanted him to live a normal life and to experience an exciting and vibrant youth. I don't know about you all, but I'm truly enjoying the way this story is developing. The principal's character arc, it's surprisingly heartwarming. And here we are now. Doyle has arrived at the hospital, though he seems a bit agitated and wishes to leave quickly. As he approaches the dean's hospital room, he sees both Dangu and Mina waiting patiently just inside. The dean is weeping like a small child in agony. Since he is an adult, He naturally feels ashamed for being so vulnerable and weak. Right now, his wife is comforting him, while the dean continues to state that he cannot afford to be embarrassed or to display any weakness in front of his students. The memory of Zhang screaming those insulting words at him while he was completely powerless to stop the fiend has been haunting him. Dangu, Mina, and Doyle are listening to this conversation with their complete and undivided attention. This man was doing so much to protect his students, and all he received in return was a stab wound for his efforts. The dean now views himself as a complete failure, sobbing his eyes out and hiding his face in shame. The emotional moment comes to an end there, and the scene shifts to a far more terrifying sequence of events. GK Cheol, the genuine article, is enraged that one single troublemaker was able to cause so much chaos. Before him, Zhang trembles like a terrified puppy, completely accepting that he deserves to die for his failures. He simply wants one more opportunity to atone for his mistakes. But Cheol is finished. He doesn't believe that Zhang is sincere in his words, because if he were, then he would have already dragged Doyle's lifeless corpse here. And now, it is time for a truly horrifying punishment. Zhang screams that he is prepared to endure any form of punishment, whatever his master demands of him. Those words are like music to GK's ears, who assigns him the impossible mission of generating 10 million won per week. Zhang is so utterly terrified that he doesn't even fully process the ridiculousness of the task. He simply accepts it as a direct and absolute command. As for Kim Doyle, who has become a thorn in their side, GK Cheol wants Zhang to atone for his mistake and bring him here. In the final shot, we get our first glimpse of the face of the Ilji High Supreme Leader. Doyle unleashes a symphony of perfect shots, a true professional at work. Mina is completely entranced, mesmerized by his every single move, while Dangu recounts his sorrowful past, explaining how he was branded with the pathetic title of dumbass by every tormentor who ever crossed his unfortunate path. Eventually, it reached a point where Dangu simply resigned himself to this cruel reality, believing he was truly nothing more than a pathetic fool. Doyle is an absolute legend, while Mina's obsession for him only grows. But his tragic monologue is completely lost on the other two. Mina is lost in the delusion that this is a date, but Doyle coldly instructs her to vanish from his sight. This titan will not allow her to get any closer. Recalling the words of their dean, Dangu reminds them how insane it is to be relaxed during such a volatile and dangerous time. He is reminded of the moment he hired Doyle to fight his battles, though that now seems utterly pointless, seeing as Doyle is just as ruthless as his other tormentors. Dangu decides to depart from the group, convinced that asking for Doyle's assistance is a futile effort, since he will only bill him for every single minor action. But just as he prepares to walk away, our protagonist halts his exit, igniting a tiny spark of hope that perhaps this man truly does care. In a moment of pure comedy, the only thing Doyle actually cares about is him taking his lunchbox. Dangu erupts in a childish fit of rage, proclaiming that he was the one who purchased it in the first place. And the scene concludes there, shifting back to the ravenous gang members who are desperately searching for the location of Doyle's residence. Unfortunately for them, they're unable to find him, no matter how relentlessly they search. Tragically, no one is aware of his precise current address, making it a monumental challenge for Gang Yuck to locate him. The poor soul laments his cruel destiny for consistently being assigned the most wretched tasks, even when he has absolutely no involvement with them. The hulking brute unleashes a devastating fist into his gut, sending him crashing violently to the wet pavement below. The downpour continues, and so does the savage beating. This fatty commands Gang Yuck to track down Doyle's associates, to acquire any information on his whereabouts. He continues to pummel Gang Yuck's head for being as worthless as a dog. It is at this moment that Gang Yuck falls into a state of deep reflection, wondering what terrible sin he committed to warrant such a brutal punishment. Witnessing this horrifying scene transpire, the bystanders around them are frozen in utter disbelief. Zhang strolls right past them, his minions ordering the onlookers to disperse and be on their way. Gang Yuck is presented with a chilling ultimatum. If he fails to deliver Doyle to this specific spot within 60 minutes, then he will not be leaving this world in one piece. And yes, for the record, the One Piece is indeed real. Celebrate, all you fans. Hyuk questions the cruel fate that has been laid before him, his mind racing, his eyes welling up with despair. The spectators are doing absolutely nothing to help him. Not a single soul is even attempting to call the police to save his life. Among these onlookers is Dangu, who is petrified to make direct eye contact with Hyuk. The very instant he locks gazes with Dangu, he stammers and calls out his name, identifying the poor boy as Doyle's subordinate and slave. You can just see the hope draining from Dangu's face, knowing the terrible fate that is about to befall him. And the absolute worst does, in fact, occur, as the gang members proceed to beat the absolute hell out of Dangu. And despite this, being utterly loyal to his friend, he steadfastly refused to reveal Doyle's location. Jongshan is repulsed by the sight of such weak individuals, displaying so much defiance in his presence. With wide, murderous eyes, Jongshan gives Dangu a chilling reminder of who they are. With a gleaming blade in his hand, he tries to terrify the boy by reminding him of the terrible fate of their own Dean. All of a sudden, the tragic memory of their beloved Dean, sobbing in agony, flashes through his consciousness. Jongshan tells him that their only issue is with Doyle. As long as he can summon him here, they'll be satisfied. Other than that, it's not as if this innocent victim can do anything to save himself. Trapped in this utterly hopeless predicament, Dangu's mind flashes back to the moment he was insulted by his father for being as weak as his own mother. Those very same cruel words are now being echoed by Jongshan, who promises to let him live as long as he calls for Doyle. Finally finding the strength to speak, Dangu declares that he is not the idiot here. His defiant words completely stun the gang's second-in-command. Dangu repeats his statement, revealing that it is Young-chan's crew who are the actual fools in this entire scenario. Hearing him utter something so incredibly defiant, Hyuk completely loses what little sanity he has left. Jongshan lets out a truly demonic laugh, as if it is the most hilarious joke he has ever heard. To make his point crystal clear, he slashes Dangu across the nose, leaving a deep gash that causes him unimaginable agony. He screams out in pure pain a second later. Jongshan grabs his face, coldly reminding the boy of his place in this hierarchy. He views him as nothing more than a piece of trash that must be crushed into the unforgiving ground. Raising a trembling hand in defiance, Dangu finds the will to be courageous for the first time, to prevent his own fear from consuming him entirely. He seizes Jongshan's arm, empowered by the rage and despair. From all the countless beatings he has endured in his school life, Jongshan begins to wonder if this boy has gone completely deaf, or perhaps he simply does not understand the Korean language. To ensure he remembers the vast power gap between them, Jongshan slams Dangu with a devastating punch, knocking him unconscious. More time elapses, though. At this point, Gang Hyuk is wondering where Dangu's sudden courage is coming from. After all, his continued defiance will only result in more unimaginable pain. And yet, he is unwavering when it comes to protecting information about his one true friend. Jongshan eventually grows tired from the beatdown he has been inflicting on Dangu. Now that he's been knocked unconscious, they can't do anything else to him. He doesn't care if they have to tear his mouth open when he regains consciousness. All he desires is information regarding Doyle. In a shocking twist, it appears Dangu is still conscious and aware. This boy must possess some kind of death wish, because he has certainly chosen a terrible day to be so brave. Addressing the ruthless gang commander, he calls Jongshan an absolute bastard, remembering all the torment they have brought to his entire school. He identifies them as the true villains and questions why it is always the weaker individuals who are branded as the fools instead. The true criminals created this entire mess. They are the ones who deserve to be punished, not them. Hyuk is pinching the bridge of his nose, knowing full well that this boy is about to be slaughtered if he continues his defiant speech any longer. He continues, stating that their lives would be absolutely perfect if this wretched gang never existed to cause them such chaos. Pointing directly at Jongshan, he declares him the source of all their suffering, roaring that everyone in this corrupt gang is a complete idiot. His bold declaration is heard by Jongshan, who turns back with his blade drawn, remarking on Dangu's sheer audacity to say such things. In the life-threatening situation he is in, moving with blinding speed, he brandishes his weapon and pins Dangu's face to the ground, wondering if perhaps gouging out Dangu's eyes would be enough to teach him a valuable lesson. Hyuk knows there is no turning back from this point, while Jongshan mercilessly lunges forward to slice out his eye. His attack is brought to an abrupt halt when Zhang sees a shocking sight appear from out of nowhere. Remember the firearm that Doyle was so proudly brandishing? It turns out that it was merely a replica that Dangu had given him, with a hidden warning message concealed inside. The point is, this man literally attempted to shoot Zhang down without a moment's hesitation. The main event has arrived, and the fatty recognizes him in an instant, while Zhang is in a bloodthirsty state, like a hungry predator ready to tear apart its prey. Doyle addresses Dangu and understands why he switched their mobile devices. Unfortunately, his phone screen is now completely shattered, and Doyle identifies the freakish Zhang as the one responsible. He also sees his delicious lunch completely annihilated on the ground. Doyle instantly assesses this as a dire emergency, not because his supposed friend was about to lose an eye. Oh no, but because they destroyed his precious meal. Overjoyed to finally stand face to face with the irritating pest who has caused him so much grief, Zhang yaps and fails to see Doyle closing the distance at light speed. He is so impossibly fast that his punches feel as if they have just vaporized parts of Zhang very being. Doyle approaches the situation with a cold detachment, only caring about getting his revenge for the destroyed lunchbox. The story briefly deviates, recounting the Silem Dong Golden Karaoke Bar incident. The perpetrators were a group of thugs who ruled over the Silem Dong area, a gang known as the Hot-Blooded Men. Now, these individuals were a recently formed syndicate that used their influence to rise in power, utilizing women to bribe police officials. Thanks to this, they never faced any legal repercussions because the police were always reluctant to interfere with their operations. Shortly after this, the entire group was annihilated at the hands of a truly ruthless individual. Their commander, Li Ho-chil, was in the middle of a birthday celebration when it all went down. The event was attended by the main 21 members of the syndicate to celebrate this momentous occasion. But then, a single intruder entered the building. Every single one of the gang members was utterly obliterated at the hands of one man, having suffered life-threatening injuries. And the one responsible for this carnage was a single, psychopathic 13-year-old boy. A boy with an extreme sense of arrogance and disgust in his eyes. That boy was none other than Zhang himself. At the time, it was inconceivable to think that a mere 13-year-old could defeat so many powerful gang members that not even the police could lay a hand on. 21 individuals completely dismantled by a single person. Shortly after this incident, the rumors of his sadistic power spread like wildfire across Seoul, and every person who heard of him bestowed upon him a new nickname, one befitting his sheer brutality, the Demon Im Zhang. And that very same Zhang is currently so utterly terrified that he appears completely powerless at this moment. He is enduring a one-sided beatdown, completely unable to fight back against his adversary, appearing like a broken, helpless doll. He believes Doyle must have poisoned him or used some other trick. After all, he simply cannot accept being defeated at the hands of some complete nobody like Doyle, aiming for a vicious stab. Zhang attack misses its mark, with Doyle effortlessly avoiding, flicking the blade back in an attempt to catch him off guard. Zhang goes for a wide, sweeping slash, but even that is easily evaded, causing Zhang even greater frustration. He tries again and again, but Doyle is looking at him with an expression that simply screams, "Are you finished yet, child?" Doyle delivers a soul-crushing uppercut to this fiend's jaw, an attack that Zhang could clearly see coming, and yet he was still powerless to avoid it. Somehow maintaining his stance, Zhang refuses to fall. He wipes the blood from his mouth, his face now sickly and pale. All he can think about is what Doyle has done to him, a pathetic loser who believes he could not be defeated in a fair contest. Doyle's previous attacks did serious damage to his ribs, causing Zhang to scream in agony as he clutches his side. Doyle views him as nothing more than a pathetic child, who simply will not stop his incessant whining, giving him the same brutal treatment that he gave to so many others. Doyle coldly states that it is not his problem that Yung is so utterly weak. It is a simple truth that his adversary cannot accept, and there is a very good reason for that. It is because Zhang has never been beaten badly enough in his life to learn humility, which is precisely why Doyle is here, to teach him a lesson, like a stern master about to discipline his unruly student. Zhang face contorts with terror, though he foolishly rushes in to attack once more. Doyle nonchalantly sidesteps his punch with his trademark speed, forcing Zhangchan to attempt a kick instead. Doyle ducks to his right, evading the attack with ease. In response, he counters with a single left hook that his opponent can clearly see, coming from a mile away, and yet for some unknown reason, he still cannot avoid it, as Doyle sends him reeling back like a punching bag. Taking massive damage, the blonde begins to question his very existence. He compares the situation to being aimed at with a firearm. Even though Zhangchan knows the bullet is about to be fired, he cannot react to its incredible velocity. Doyle batters him with more and more of his godlike speed, doing serious damage to Zhangchan until he can barely maintain his own footing. Pausing for a brief moment, Doyle impressively notes that he is clearly fighting someone far stronger than a normal person, as Zhangchan has been doing a remarkable job of absorbing his attack so far. That may be true, but Zhangchan's current state tells you everything you need to know. He's like a mortally wounded animal that needs to be put down to end his suffering. Of course, this is a favorable outcome for Doyle, who is thoroughly enjoying this experience. Gangyul is baffled to his very core, clutching his head in pure disbelief, because this entire battle is taking place over a damn lunchbox. Even Dangu is left completely speechless. Gesturing towards him, Doyle tells Zhangchan to step closer, asking him which part of his body he would like him to break, as he will graciously take Zhangchan's preference into account. Seeing him stand there in complete silence, Doyle's eyes narrow, with a gaze so utterly terrifying that it makes Zhangchan tremble before him. He is forced to look away, unable to meet the gaze of his ferocious adversary. Since he is not making a decision, Doyle decides that it is now time to take charge of the situation, and figures it would be entertaining to shatter Zhangchan's jaw. It is the same situation as before. The bullet is about to be discharged, and there is absolutely nothing Zhangchan can do to prevent it from happening. Doyle's god-tier fist connects, the sensation rushing through him, as if he just vaporized Zhangchan's head from his shoulders. The delinquent cries out in pure agony, screaming on his knees. Despite being as ruthless as he has never encountered a person as terrifying as Doyle. The moment he met his gaze, he could feel a creature far more cunning lurking in Doyle's shadow. It is as if he is not even fighting a human opponent, a living manifestation of combat perfection. His rambling is silenced by Doyle slamming a kick into his jaw, shattering the remainder of his jawbone. The fight, or rather, the one-sided demolition, persists, with Doyle beating the absolute hell out of the unconscious Zhangchan. Back at the hospital, the dean is enjoying a cup of coffee with his wife, while the very same fiend who stabbed him is getting the sonic rings beaten out of his body. By the time Doyle is finished, he is panting from sheer exhaustion. With their top enforcer now defeated, the fatty gets his panties in a complete twist, completely powerless before Doyle's intimidating gaze. The scene cuts to the Tiger Crew gang's secret hideout. Here, a mountain of defeated bodies lies on the floor, with one man casually eating his noodles. JKL ended up meeting the leader of the Tiger Crew in person, and because he was not satisfied with how the negotiations were going, he decided to sever their precious tendons for his own sick amusement, knowing that these men were prepared to betray him at any moment. He tortures their leader by poking at his wounds with his chopsticks. Jekyll grants them 2 days to clean up Busan's little mess, and then merge their forces with his gang. Seeing as he has no other option, their leader nods his head in agreement. Jekyll stares him down, demanding his absolute loyalty. He is content with the answer he is given, so this freak of nature departs with a menacing glare on his face. As he is leaving, Iljeong Hai's chief of operations, Hyuk-kyul, informs his boss that he has been receiving a large number of calls. Taking the phone, Ji-hyul is startled when he hears a different voice on the other end of the line. It's Doyle, and he is all business. Right as GCHQ opens the door, all he sees is a man standing before him with a phone pressed against his ear. Doyle has arrived at their headquarters. After all, they have been searching for him with great urgency. Also, he took the opportunity to annihilate every single one of GCHQ's men while he was waiting, adopting a nightmarish smile. GCHQ finds himself more entertained than ever before, sharing a meeting with the head principal of the school. One of the teachers questions if it is truly a wise decision to let this incident go unpunished. After all, this incident involved an outsider who brutally assaulted multiple individuals. It is an event that should be making national news for the safety of the student body. In response, the selfish principal argues that it is the parents' fault for enrolling their children in a place like their school. In the first place, the Iljiyoung school is not like a normal school. It is the one place where parents send their children because they have given up all hope for their future. Even if they manage to turn their lives around, it would not make any difference. Nobody even cares about the reputation of Iljiyoung High, and to prevent any further issues, the head principal does not want to create a bigger mess. This spineless coward believes that bystanders should not get involved unnecessarily, as something far more sinister is unfolding behind the scenes. And let's return to our hero, who is beating the absolute crap out of the chief of operations. Hugo Yell absorbs the powerful blow, rolling backward and returning to analyze his opponent. He could tell that Doyle just executed a masterful judo technique. The warrior lands and stands before Hugh Shehal, who cannot quite figure out what this man's deal is. It is the same situation that happened with John Chan. They can anticipate his attacks, but they simply do not have the reflexes to evade them. Now, Hyuk Cheol is a very intelligent fighter, and he clearly recognizes that he cannot win in a direct fight. However, the moment he can get a hold of Doyle's body, it will be game over for this battle. Giving in to his emotions, Hugh Gill attempts to do just that. His massive hand misses Doyle, so he uses his other arm to swing forward and grab him once more. Doyle makes a tactical retreat, easily dodging and then surprising his opponent with a sudden duck. Doyle slams his face and torso with both of his kicks, sending him flying backward. To make sure he stays down for good, he delivers a merciless punch to Hugh Gill's face, staring him down without a shred of emotion. A few moments prior, he had been carrying Dangu's limp body, who realized that the scar he had received on his nose would remain for a very long time. And of course, he will be reminded of that scar every time he looks in a mirror. Doyle calls him annoying for asking such obvious questions, but Dangu, he is conflicted. He has been a part of so many beatdowns without being able to do anything in retaliation. He thinks it is unfair that he has to be left with scars all across his body. Returning to the scene of the battle, Hugh Gill is trying to recover, while Doyle slams his jaw with an upward knee strike. Facing such a brutal beatdown, Hugh Gill fails to understand what is going on in Doyle's mind, as he is not holding back any of his attacks. Each time he strikes, it feels as if he is aiming to kill his opponent. Hugh Gill has his own tragic backstory revealed. He was always praised as a special individual with a unique talent. At the time, Gitchell offered him a position to become his right-hand man. Hugh Gill was considered special by their commander, a man that could not be looked down upon until he met Doyle. So, he makes a last-ditch effort to jab his opponent, being as light on his feet as ever. Our boy dodges, fueling him with more frustration than ever before. A few more attacks are exchanged, with Hugh Cheol being the aggressor, doing whatever he can to intimidate his opponent, adding in feints to confuse him. His plan involves grabbing Doyle in a desperate attempt, and right as he does that, only certain death awaits Doyle with a slam to the ground. Or at least, that is what his delusional mind believes will happen, because Doyle casually counters the throw by locking his weight in place. The special move that Hugh Cho tried so desperately to execute failed spectacularly with a simple weight-shifting technique, allowing Doyle to hold his ground. This technique is known only to elite professionals, causing Hugh Cho even greater shock. And now, to deliver a beautiful suplex of his own, Doyle slams his back into the unforgiving ground, causing him a whirlwind of excruciating pain. This man has bested him at his own specialty, completely annihilating Hugh Cheol's signature technique, even though there is a massive difference in their weight. Doyle's mere existence seems to defy all logic, regaining some of his consciousness and recovering from the attack. Hugh Cheol sees a powerful kick flying his way. Back to Dangu's words, he followed up by promising Doyle as much money as he could ever want, as long as he would consider him his friend. Our boy tosses Hugh Cheol's body away like a rag doll, his face completely devoid of emotion when he hears Dangu's sincere plea. Even now, as he looms over Hugh Cheol's broken body, he is reminded of the moment he shared with Dangu. Doyle gets into trouble with a group of police officers who are apprehending him on the spot. Remember the beatdown he gave to the other guys? Yeah, well, one of them ended up contacting the police. They are about to arrest him when suddenly one of the policemen gets his face smashed in with a brick. It's GTO, and this guy is a fucking madman for assaulting an officer. The other officer tries to arrest this psychopath, but he quickly dismantles him like a force of nature. With both of them now neutralized, GCIO composes himself, glancing at Doyle with pure excitement, having obtained everything he has ever desired through sheer violence. The gang leader believes it is the most efficient way to live. He simply cannot tolerate other people interfering with him, when all he wants to do is have some fun. The leader of the gang even offers to become friends with Doyle, arguing that he could help him cultivate his abilities for the better. What's more, the gang will have their full and unwavering support. The reason he mentioned the boss of Japan's Yakuza Okita group is because violence is an easy way to acquire money. He extends his offer to Doyle, who has very little interest in entertaining him, and unleashes his full speed from the very beginning. His fist seems to vaporize Jekyll's face with a single blow. Doyle then drops a massive bombshell. He was the one who personally killed the Yakuza boss. This man is fucking unstoppable at this point. Circling back to the discussion regarding the head principal, he recalls sharing a drink with one of the local congressmen. The head principal believes that one of the students in their school is responsible for stealing vital information from the top corporate clubs. As for the fight, you would be shocked to discover this, but Jackal actually managed to block Doyle's attack in time. A sinister smile spreading across his face. The leader of the gang realizes that Doyle has no intention of accepting his offer. Doyle curses him out for being an annoying parrot who keeps repeating the same thing to someone who is clearly not a simple high school student. As is typical, we get another backstory drop that I'm fully expecting to be more psychopathic than anything we have witnessed thus far. A young Gitchell came to the realization that murderers are not evil for killing, as death was simply a natural part of life. One of the most infamous killers of all time, Albert Bundy, argued that he was merely adjusting his victim's time of death. Albert Bundy was responsible for the murders of 30 women. This bastard GTO, however, poured boiling water onto a helpless infant. GTO was essentially an emo kid who took things way too far at a young age. And instead of it being just a phase, he made it his entire personality. He believed that murdering others was incredibly cool, which perfectly encapsulates his insanity. When he was interrogated for information as to why he attempted to kill his own brother, Kyle responded that he was annoyed by Jiho's incessant whine. Despite warning the baby on multiple occasions, the child refused to obey him. Therefore, he was the one in the wrong, and he suffered for it. Now, Jackal's situation was remarkably similar to the famous serial killer. He was punished for his heinous crimes, and inevitably had to face the consequences of his actions. However, many people in the world operated with complete freedom without ever having to face any consequences. For instance, Sakatsu Buchino, an attack leader of the Okita group, the very same man who was suspected of murdering 7 members of a rival organization. In every trial, he was never once found guilty. The young GCHQ carefully noted how many powerful political figures did not receive the punishment that he did. It was then that he made it his life's ambition to amass as much wealth and power as he possibly could, so that he could become completely immune to the consequences of his actions, so that he could decide the time of death for others, so that he could play the role of God. Having now matured, he returned to have a discussion with his infant brother, who had half of his face completely disfigured, thanks to his older brother's brutal assault. GK all reveals the true reason he attempted to kill his baby brother. It was because he did not want another version of himself to exist. After all, it only made sense to him for a single god to exist in this world. Now, standing before Doyle, the leader of the gang channels his twisted philosophy, but Doyle is not interested and goes for a vicious kick, which his opponent actually manages to dodge. He goes on to block every one of Doyle's strikes, though Jekyll did not escape the encounter completely unharmed. Not at all. In fact, he received a deep gash on his head. Jekyll is bewildered how his opponent can move even faster than him, a fact that Doyle makes abundantly clear. Also, he makes it known to the Fiend that he is only toying with him. But now, he is starting to wonder if GTO is something beyond a normal person. To that, the boss admits that he has surpassed the likes of many individuals in his life. He was the one who wiped the floor with Yongbayam and left a trail of blood in his wake everywhere he went. And yet, this is his first time encountering someone like Doyle. Finding him to be an intriguing figure, Chill lunges at him with his full speed, delivering a similar iconic strike to Doyle's own punches. Doyle is genuinely impressed that Chill managed to replicate his attack. Not that it will make any difference, because our boy sends him flying with yet another powerful blow. Chill stammers for a brief moment. More blood trickling down his face. But he shows no indication of defeat. He tries to sweep Doyle off his feet, an attack that is easily avoided. But then, the next move, it even gives Doyle some trouble to evade, as his opponent is going all out, overpowering him with every single advance. GKO ends up taking a punch to the face, but he lets it slide, gaining the upper hand in their exchange. Jekyll tries to knee him in the face. Doyle ducks and analyzes the state of the battle. The longer this fight continues, his opponent seems to become stronger over time, making Jekyll a terrifying adversary to face. The gang leader unleashes a powerful swing, rivaling Doyle's own speed, who is already unbelievably fast. Doyle thinks that it is remarkable to find a special talent, like this guy lingering in a high school in Korea. Jackal goes on the offensive once again, increasing his speed as if he is getting a constant power-up. Still, his attack patterns are easy enough to counter, so Doyle is managing to avoid every single one of his strikes. He knows that Jekyll has been preparing a truly powerful punch, hidden behind the jabs he's been throwing, but he calls it a shallow and predictable approach. Jekyll tries to shock Doyle with a surprise left hook, surprising him greatly as the attack connects, slamming Doyle backward. This gives YK all the confidence he needs to declare that he is simply an unstoppable force, who is destined to rise above all others. Okay, I have to admit, this story loves to throw in jump scares. Because of that attack just now, it appears that Doyle actually caught it, and he proceeds to insult Jitchel's annoying bickering. Our boy humbles the bastard, mentioning that while he may not be a normal person, he is still nothing more than a domesticated dog with his own limitations. Hearing his infuriating words, Kyle's body erupts with a fierce rage, and in an instant, he experiences a sharp sensation coursing through the right side of his face. He cannot comprehend what could have possibly happened, even though he did not even sense his opponent move. To him, Doyle looks like an avatar, a manifestation of death itself, a terrifying being who has come to remind Coel of his own mortality. Drowning in the void, Coel realizes that he is meeting the same punishment that every killer is destined to meet. His body is obliterated with every single one of Doyle's attacks. While this is happening, Jong-suk, who is ranked second in the Nampo Urim gang, arrives to see what is going on, as he has not heard anything from Ji-cheol. He remarks that getting involved with someone like Sayok-dong is destined to lead people to a complete disaster. To their horror and absolute astonishment, they discover the bodies of the policemen lying on the ground, and just beyond them, Doyle stands over their boss, whose body has been crippled beyond all recognition. Young-sok is at a complete loss for words, unable to comprehend the horrifying scene before him, while Doyle casually glares at him with his cold, dead eyes. Among the 11 nations, Nampo Urim's leader, Ju Hyung, is completely stunned by the scene. Jong-suk is horrified to see the remains of the Tiger Crew gang, and now, seeing Kyle's current state, it is safe to say he has endured permanent and irreversible damage. Their leader, Haeyoung, was the one who intervened and stopped him. He is the one who reduced Kyle into a pathetic slime. But Young-sok is curious if letting the guy roam free was a wise decision. Being sensible, Hyung argues that they should not rush into things without a proper strategy. The scene cuts to the police station where Park Chung-sik, a deeply corrupt police officer, is being threatened with having his information hacked by a random act. They are aware of all the terrible crimes he has allowed to go unpunished for, the bribes he has accepted, and each of them has evidence attached to the person blackmailing him, who wants to investigate a list. He proclaims that Doyle is a force not to be underestimated. From his own observations, it's an undeniable fact they will inevitably cross paths again if he continues to challenge the underworld syndicates. In a much lighter scene, Mina is in pure celebration mode, having crowned Doyle as their new sovereign and commander. Reports of his conquest over southern Seoul spread like wildfire. Any who dare commit atrocities will be hunted down by him. No longer will the thugs of this city prey upon the innocent students of Samoa. Mina believes their use of paper flyers is entirely archaic in this advanced age of digital media. But when you truly consider the circumstances, who would possibly follow the social media of the anime club's nerds? The former bullies are now whining about their unemployment, which is utterly hilarious when you stop to think about it. Doyle, completely unbothered, simply blocks out their pathetic cries. On their journey back, Dangu mentions that he placed a sizable bonus within Doyle's locker. Ever since his momentous arrival, the school's students have known true peace. The prophecy is being fulfilled. The high school is no longer a brutal, unforgiving war zone he never could have imagined. That Doyle would single-handedly obliterate the entire Iljeong High Syndicate. Our hero even sent photographic proof of Cheol broken and defeated. Dangu wonders if he simply altered the photograph, but Doyle retorts that such a trick would have been far easier and much more efficient if he had done so. Dangu is ecstatic, marveling at Doyle's godlike power, and vows to never again be a burden in his presence. He desires to learn the art of combat from the absolute best, a proposition that Doyle receives with a look of utter confusion. Although they have vanquished the Iljeong Syndicate, there remain many other factions left to conquer. Among them is Sukdong of the notorious Sukdong High. Their fifth-ranked delinquent is nonchalantly engaged in conversation, amused by the rumors of some kid single-handedly dismantling the 12 nations. Knowing the monstrous power of Cheol, they refuse to believe one lone student could defeat him so easily. Tormenting Dong Hyuk, they demand his thoughts and slam him to the ground. Seo Kyuk shows him absolutely no mercy and orders the boy to go and fetch the ball. Dong Hyuk pulls himself together and swiftly retrieves the ball, presenting it back to the merciless delinquent. He is commanded to return to his designated spot of shame, a punishment designed to humiliate him for being a fool. The delinquents persist in their cruel mockery, degrading him for being a disgrace born from his family. The boy remains utterly silent, causing Seo Kyung to become enraged. Still, he does not utter a single word. So the brutish fatty hurls the baseball directly at his head. Dong Hyuk is utterly defenseless, but he manages to duck just in time. But the projectile continues its path right towards Doyle, who catches it with absolute ease. They never anticipated stumbling into such a confrontation. Now, the true crime here is Doyle losing a piece of his meal to stop the ball. The delinquents demand to know who they are. But instead of a verbal response, our hero replies with his fists, knocking the teeth clean out of the fatty's mouth. The only female in the group calls Doyle completely insane, while he calmly passes his lunchbox to Dangu. Suddenly, that very same girl finds him incredibly alluring. This man has every woman swooning no matter where he goes. Seo Kyuk's minions charge forward to handle this handsome devil, questioning if the Samoan High student has lost his mind for declaring war against their entire faction. In response, Doyle simply draws his sidearm, aims it at the bald one's head, and pulls the trigger, knocking him unconscious. The scumbags cannot believe what they just saw. They can't comprehend how he used a real firearm in South Korea. The blonde is swept off his feet with a single devastating kick, and then Doyle traps his head in a brutal elbow lock, smashing his face repeatedly into the nearby wall. To add another layer of humiliation to this fool, he fires every single rubber bullet into the man's behind, giving him the most embarrassing beatdown in human history. I would simply move to another continent after that. Not gonna lie, Doyle continues his relentless advance, confronting two more insignificant-looking characters, proclaiming that he is prepared to fight all of them at once for being so annoying. You can only imagine what transpired next. By the time he is through, the girl from their school is having her panties in a complete twist. Seo Kyuk has the gall to stand up to him again, despite his mouth full of broken teeth. He questions if he is an assassin sent from Iljeong to destroy them. Doyle offers them zero mercy, confronting the fool who roars that he is here to capture GKO, which is utterly hilarious because Doyle gives him the "Who in the hell are you" look. Seo Kyuk foolishly rushes in to attack, the very same man who literally shattered his damn teeth just moments ago. Doyle even warns him to look down, but that proves to be a lie as he pulls a gun to his face. A single headshot is all it takes to send a clown flying. Their next objective is Sayakdong High, as Doyle looms over the defeated delinquent, who simply cannot understand why he is attacking them. In response, this man utters a single chilling word, "pork," and then he pulls the trigger, initiating the complete annihilation of Sukdong High. 2 entire months have passed since that bloody incident. The seasons are now changing, and Jinju has swiftly evolved into our hero's biggest admirer. Doyle reminds him not to be so incredibly embarrassed as a 20-year-old man. He has now sworn to become Doyle's right-hand man, shadowing him wherever he may go. Jinju claims that any powerful individual inevitably becomes an older brother figure, and for the longest time, He revered Jicheol as the highest mountain peak. But now he understands that there exists an even greater mountain, far beyond the likes of Jicheol. Of course, Doyle is lost in his own thoughts, remembering that he had Zhang Chan incarcerated. But for some mysterious reason, Jinju escaped without any punishment. It turns out that Jinju only received a minor warning, as he refused to divulge any information. All this fool cared about was building muscles at the gym, so the police officer was completely powerless in that situation. Jinju begs to be taken on as his personal assistant, vowing to serve him for the remainder of his life. Doyle is growing impatient, so he reluctantly agrees. While this is all happening, the horny Mina draws attention to her stunning figure. But our hero is too much of a Sigma male to even spare her a glance. Mina thinks that someone should wipe away her sweat, and when Jinju offers to do so, she calls him a complete pervert. Doyle is beginning to entertain the idea of killing these fools and fleeing Korea once and for all. As for Dangu, he is receiving his punishment in the form of exercise. The poor boy doesn't know if he is being trained or tortured. He asked for this, so he's being forced to train his physical body, primarily his lower half. Even though Doyle has yet to teach him a single combat technique, our hero doesn't care if he whines or complains. He is simply doing things his own way. Later, Doyle demands 6 million won for the complete destruction of Sayak-dang High, the performance bonus being an astronomically high amount, even though it should only be around 1 million. Doyle argues that it will require a great deal more effort to defeat Sayak-dang High than the gang he just annihilated. He has conducted his research in advance, but Doyle breaks the fourth wall and argues that the enemies who appear later on are obviously always stronger, a fundamental rule in all of fiction. And when it comes to working with Dong-gu as an irritating teammate, things inevitably become far more complicated. Doyle agreed to train him to the point of death so that Dong-gu could have an opportunity to prove his worth. And now, it is time for him to do just that. He wants Dong-gu to defeat Park Kang-wook as his very first opponent. Right now, the most powerful individual at the school is Kang-wook, since the other bullies transferred out of sheer terror. He wants Dong-gu to defeat Kang-wook and seize control of the Sumin territory for himself. Dangu doesn't understand how that would work, since Doyle is already the boss. But our boy argues that his power is on a global scale and is not confined to this tiny, insignificant high school. Dangu imagines himself as a ruthless boss ruling over the entire school. Doyle tells him that if he can conquer the school, they can collectively obliterate Sukdong within the span of a single week. Back in the classroom, the students are whispering rumors about Dong-ho, challenging Kang-ho to a one-on-one duel. They wonder if Dong-ho's personality has changed after meeting the mysterious transfer student, as he would have never dared to do this in the past. The battle will take place in the school auditorium, so the students all rush to become spectators. The entire school has now gathered, surrounding the two combatants. Dong-gu is as nervous as ever, while Kang-wook believes he is being toyed with. As is tradition, the official battle between the two is about to commence. As for Doyle, he has swiftly become the iconic figure, responsible for slamming GCHH into the ground. Every single witness confirms this fact to be true, even though all footage of their fight was mysteriously erased. They wonder what could have possibly caused Jekyll to end up in a wheelchair, and why he has retired from commanding his own gang, even going so far as to speculate that the National Federation was responsible for stopping him. Still, the pieces just do not add up. How could a group of weaklings from Samun High School ever defeat that absolute psychopath to such a devastating degree? Regardless, there were scumbags prepared to betray the 12 nations, acting as the weakest link in the chain. And this hulking behemoth is here to eliminate those rats. He confronts a group led by Sangsik, who betrayed their own boss for his personal gain. Sangsik commands his men to attack him, but they're all knocked down one after another like helpless flies. He even grabs one of them and slams a heavy knee into his face. The scene is absolutely brutal, as this man isn't holding back, completely demolishing his victims. He dashes forward and takes care of the remaining vermin, reaching for Sangsik and grabbing hold of a nearby hammer. Quivering where he stands, Sangsik attempts to strike him, only to get his face splattered by the full weight of the hammer. The brutal sound of torture echoes throughout the entire room. Sangsik was utterly destroyed for betraying the leader of Sukdong High. As for this behemoth, he is ranked second in the entire gang, known as Jang Chun-sik. who vows to crush Doyle in their inevitable confrontation. Back at the auditorium, the students are waiting in eager anticipation. Doyle is nonchalantly enjoying the spectacle. Dangu's opponent has just knocked the daylights out of him. The underdog is now down for the count. Despite absorbing the devastating blows, Dangu musters the courage to rise to his feet once more. His classmates are utterly stunned, seeing him get up after taking such a brutal punch directly to the face. His opponent was going all out from the very beginning and left nothing in reserve when it came to destroying him. And yet, Dangu's resilience shines as he continues to get back up, impressing his peers and striking worry into his opponent's heart. Wiping the blood from his face, the once cowardly nerd is now standing tall like a determined warrior, prepared for round two. His opponent's expression shows visible concern, so he tried diving in for another desperate punch, in an attempt to knock Dangu down for good. The powerful hook causes him to stumble, but taking a blow like that was nothing new compared to the beatings he received. In an attempt to retaliate, Dangu threw a punch, but it was a pathetic attack, causing his opponent to counter with a heavy knee to his abdomen, cursing the boy for being so unbelievably weak. Unable to recover from that previous attack, Dangu absorbs yet another heavy blow directly to his face, sending a shockwave through his body as he crashes across the gym. The scene reminds his friend of a conversation they had, where Dangu spoke proudly about being trained by the greatest fighter he knew, though he had yet to understand the purpose of the ambiguous training Doyle had been putting him through. It was time to stop depending on Doyle, but his friend suggested that perhaps relying on Doyle's strength was actually a good thing, because that man was born the monster that he was, and normal people like Dangu and him were just commoners. Remembering that conversation, blood drips down onto the unforgiving floor as his classmates begin to wonder if Dangu has completely lost his sanity for continuing this brutal fight. They begin to question if this is truly the same Dangu they have always known. A boy who refuses to remain on the ground. A boy who always gets back up, no matter the beating. Adopting a fighting stance, he puts his opponent in a state of great turmoil. You see, this is the very same boy who cannot even throw a proper punch, and yet he now has the eyes of a determined warrior, ready to face any challenge that stands in his way. The scene reminds his opponent of the exact same situation. With Yongchan, as without Doyle's assistance, the boy is completely worthless on his own. And yet, he showed Yongchan a glare of pure determination as well. The only logical explanation is that he must have been faking his bravery, delusionally believing that it would somehow salvage his hopeless situation, or so his opponent believes. This time, he is determined to put Dangu down for good, so he lunges forward with incredible velocity, aiming to knock his opponent unconscious. This time, the powerful lunge resulted in a devastating fist, hurled against Dong's face, who tried to return the blow, but in vain. Dangu ended up eating a kick to the face, making me think his favorite meal is getting his ass kicked. Anyway, that devious kick causes his classmates to worry for him, as it sends him flying, knocking him down once again. Seeing the fight unfold, Doyle's reactions show no signs of worry or concern. It is almost as if he doesn't care about the outcome of this battle. While moments later, Dangu's head was repeatedly smashed to remind him of his place on the ground, his opponent hurling insults and roaring at him to stay down, cursing his lungs out, completely drained of his strength. The man stares down at Dangu's beaten body, treating him like an annoying insect who doesn't know his own place. The fight appears to be over as his opponent angrily walks away, shoving past anyone who dares to come near him. Continuing the conversation between Dangu and his friend, he came to a pause and agreed that he and Doyle were too different. He can never hope to become a monster like Doyle, but that's not what he is after anyway. A loud roar echoes through the gymnasium. Dangu questions where his opponent is running off to when the fight is not even over yet. It causes Kang Ho to stop dead in his tracks, like someone just asked him English or Spanish or something. As Kang Ho turns around, his expression contorts with rage, looking as if he has just seen a ghost. He grits his teeth, trying to contain his anger, bolting right at his opponent with another furious strike, calling Dangu a zombie. He throws a full-swing jab right in Dangu's face, the kind of attack that should basically rob you of your will to continue the fight, still faced with so much pain. Dangu smiles instead of despairing at the situation. Kang Ho thinks the kid has completely lost his mind, even though the attack fully connected. so there's no way it wouldn't have inflicted any pain. Retaliating sharply, Dan-gu goes on the offensive, causing Kang-ho to panic as he evades with caution. The scene transitions to a conversation he shared with his teacher, Doyle questioning how he was planning to beat an opponent like Kang-ho. It was then that Doyle gave him an easy hint that he will absolutely beat Kang-ho, meaning he will win eventually as the fight dragged on. And that's precisely what is happening right now, as even though Kang-hoon chucks a heavy blow into his abdomen, Dong-hoon has a mean-ass expression on his face. This boy has changed in a major way. Kang-hoon cannot believe that he is actually hitting someone, and they are reacting in this manner. Back in his conversation, Doyle explained his logic. He mentioned that a typical fight doesn't last longer than 3 minutes, and beyond that point requires sheer, unadulterated willpower, since there is not a significant weight difference between Kang-hoon and Dong-gu. The only determining factor of the fight would be their willpower, and that has been the sole purpose of Dong-gu's training all this time. Though Kang-ho doesn't even expect anything like that coming his way, it meant his chances of victory would skyrocket right as he went past the 3-minute mark. Lo and behold, the first hit connects. Dan-gu finally bashes Kang-wok with a powerful jab, causing him to stagger, exhaustion eating at his legs, thanks to his foolish temper tantrum. This idiot wasted far too much of his energy in a fight like this. This hurt his speed immensely, allowing Dan-gu to unleash a second devastating attack, a painstaking knee to the face, knocking Kang-wok down to his knee. With his opponent practically unable to defend himself, Dong-gu throws a flurry of powerful fists, hitting Kang-ho's body as if he were some kind of motionless punching bag. Dan-gu finishes with a powerful uppercut right against Kang-wok's chin, the battle looking winnable, thanks to the endurance built over months of training. But do not be fooled, the fight is not over yet. Dan-gu is hammered by Kang-wok's strong fist, right when he was not expecting it. Returning to Doyle's conversation, he mentioned that their strategy going into the fight would be to utilize sheer willpower paired with immense physical strength. Kang-ho goes heavy on the offense, but the fight feels equal, as Dong-gu returns each and every attack. Both of them are taking hits and then returning them promptly, jolting each other's bodies back from the pain of every strike. Doyle left him with a simple piece of advice that I'm sure everyone can follow. He told him that when he felt at his most vulnerable, it was then that he should make his body scream out. Another attempt to try just one more time. Dong-gu channels that advice into his core as he races forward, recalling each time he was brutally beaten up by his bullies, recalling how Kang-wok made a fool out of him on every occasion, his goons toying with him. Each of those moments becomes ammunition for him, a reason to beat the daylights out of this piece of shit. Dong-gu's eyes are filled with a new flame of determination, a will to fight. He commands his body forward, greatly shocking his friend with his performance. It is then that he remembers Dong-gu's words from the end of the conversation, who concluded that he was fine being himself and did not want to become someone like Doyle. Each student widens their eyes in shock, while Doyle is mugging them, all looking unfazed at the outcome of the fight. Dong-gu's apocalyptic uppercut just now was him pouring beyond his 100%. At last, the fight is over. The battle won. Kang-woo is on the ground, while Dan-gu maintains his stand. His friends come rushing to celebrate the big win, embracing him with love. Dong-gu is no longer the weak, pathetic underdog anymore. He is the new boss of his high school, and rightfully so. Over at the Russian branch of the Blackhead organization, a secretary has sent all the necessary details to their secret messenger. Focusing back on the scene of the school, Doyle communicates with someone using wireless headphones, surprising Dong-gu immensely. He's also confused who Doyle is on the phone with, or where they're even headed. Our boy just cannot handle this talkative worrywart, who bothers him with a ton of questions. As promised, Doyle wants to eradicate the Soupdong gang within a week's time, and here's his first target. Inside the room, a delinquent is busy torturing a nerve, like a typical Tuesday in a gang. They're irritated to meet a bunch of intruders popping out of nowhere. Doyle emphasizes that he is going to make true to his promise, and within mere moments, the entire room is filled with bodies on the ground. Their group leader is terrified to meet Doyle's gaze, shocked to find that Samoon High possesses a powerhouse such as him. This guy is Jong-soo, boasting the 4th rank among the Saekdang gang. But as usual, Doyle bitch slaps him and his group with his unorthodox fighting style, making excellent use of his surroundings. Trembling on the ground in fear, Jong-soo is met with one terrifying question. It is a choice between life and death, raising the stakes even higher. Doyle tells him to listen carefully to what he is about to ask. The first thing he wants to know about is the gambling side. These bastards are running, chasing young people as their demographic. Doyle wants this clown to surrender. The evidence: an involvement of Jong-soo's men on the newly installed app. At this point, Jong-soo is perplexed how a random guy knows about his website. The second thing Doyle has for him is an order to forward to their boss, Wong Kwa-ki. It's a deadline to meet Doyle in Sumun High and surrender while he still can. He points to Dan-gu as the boss of Sumun High, demanding Kwa-ki to kneel before the boss of the school. And if he does, there will not be any needless fight. Jun-soo is utterly stumped that skinny Indiana Jones over here, who looks like a nerd and is weak as shit, is actually the boss of the school. He's even more worried that this guy may be stronger than Doyle, which is hilarious as hell. Donga stops Doyle to check on what he just heard. Our boy thinks his plan is simple and solid, but perhaps he doesn't know about the kind of man Kwaka truly is. He is all kinds of frightening. So saying something like that is like asking for a death wish, arguing that there's going to be a gang fight. Doyle believes it is going to be Samun against Sukdong. It is pretty simple, actually, so far. Each person Doyle defeated caused another one to take their place and pop out of the blue. He's annoyed and does not want to take that painstaking route again. Instead, he is looking to annihilate Sukdong in a head-on collision. Dan-gu is scared shitless. To remind him about the insane number of gang members they're going to have to fend off in Saekdong. He is losing his mind, but Doyle is too busy aura farming and does not care about the details. He turns to Jong-soo, reminding him to bring their leader to him in person. Even Jong-soo lets out a nervous laugh, pointing out the irony of the situation. Normally, people are usually avoiding Kwa-kwai like their life depended on. But here, this man is asking to meet the devil himself in person. It is not surprising why Jong-soo is reacting like this. Cutting to a warehouse in Gimson, we get to see one guy taking the piss, literally out of fear. What he sees before him is a monster, destroying every human in his path with incredible speed. He is like a ghost with an unmatched speed. The moment this random gang member tries to escape, his life is already cut short, as a blade slices his throat. This psychopath merely smiles in glee. Jong-suk cannot believe that Doyle wants to actually meet this guy, the boss that is known to be violent and unstoppable. This guy is literally throwing hands with everyone, cutting entire groups without breaking a sweat. Unfortunately, Kwa-kwai is busy wrapping things up on a business trip, so finding him now would be hard. But Jong-soo promises to inform Doyle of his return back to Seoul. Here is the plot twist. The psychopath we saw just now, the one who was casually dismantling groups on his own, is not Wong Kwa-kwai. In fact, he experiences true fear when Saitama's death fist is aiming right at his face, sending him flying from a single punch and knocking his damn teeth out. Even though I thought the boss was going to be a disheveled psychopath like GKO, it turns out he's actually dripped out with a suit and a serious man. Back in Seoul, GCO is being detained in a wheelchair, his life crippled forever, and he receives an unexpected visitor to his cell. As per the usual, Doyle's name is famous thanks to the advertised posters. Chun-sik learns about Doyle's recent dismantling of Sakdong High's groups. He also learns that the real boss is actually Dong-gu, and that Doyle is nothing more than a subordinate to this guy. Jong-soo reports how these guys barged in without notice, in order to summon their leader with an ultimatum. Jong-suk acts tough, stating that he handled the threat and sent the kids right back home. Chun-sik rips off the poster, believing that this world has truly gone crazy. His verdict? Just leave them be. After all, Doyle is supposedly the rumor guy who also beat Kaio. Chun-sik is more than certain that he is a con artist who falsely advertised his own name. To him, Doyle appears to be some kind of attention-seeking brat, going around spreading lies. So in reality, not a single soul will ever believe Jikyo lost to him, which also means he might want to do the same to Sukdong-hae. Chun-sik thinks that these attention-seeking pests are nothing more than insects, at the end of the day, who should be ignored and deprived of attention. Back at their school, Doyle is leisurely enjoying himself when Dan-gu worriedly asks if Kwa-ki will really show up to their school. He is afraid of the worst if Kwa-kwai does come around, but Doyle is confident they will be able to overwhelm their gang's leader in one way or another. But Danga thinks this guy is overestimating his abilities because he knows next to nothing about the Saekdang gang leader. He is meaner than mean, a supposed guy who has far surpassed the limitations of humans, a man known to be human, but his strength makes you question whether he truly is or not. Doyle inquires more, causing Donggu to tell him a story regarding a rumor he heard about Kwaki. Apparently, this son of a gun was responsible for beating a bear to death after it escaped from a zoo. This bear was wreaking havoc and scaring the people until he showed up. One man was responsible for beating it dead, and that man was none other than Wang Kwai himself. Enjoying his drink, Doyle doesn't even bother to flinch, while Donggu is worried to death. Doyle argues that there is not any point in lamenting their situation, with how far they have come, while they are having their chat. A secret spy is eavesdropping on their conversation. Doyle confidently concludes that the gang's leader will definitely show up in Seoul. Back at Jongsu and Chunsik's meeting, Jongsu talks about how this supposed attention seeker, Doyle, could pose trouble for them and create chaos. Just like Chaiho, Chunsik remembers Chaiho, the dude from a national federation, but that guy is so powerful that Jong-suk would never have survived an encounter against them. Little does Chun-sik know, Jong-suk has his balls in his throat, because that is literally what happened in his encounter against Doyle. He nearly died. Chun-sik's chicks show up with a bunch of snacks. He chats them up, introducing himself as a member of Sayok-dong, and learns that the girl is from Cheongil High, where one of their gang members also studies. While he is busy drowning in pussy, Jong-soo is irritated out of his mind to see Chun-sik worried about a girl, and not one his own. Doyle ended up going to Jong-soo's residence, so he could always beat him black and blue if he betrays their deal. But if he ends up telling Chun-sik the truth about the situation and how badly his men were beaten, then he's going to really get killed. Poor Jong-soo is losing his damn mind, placed in the middle of a clusterfuck of a situation. That is, until one guy comes, panting to inform their leader about a huge problem. SEO Kiek's workshop has just been hacked, causing Chun-sik great shock. And when I tell you what these guys did, Donggu is out here posing with love, disrespectfully clowning on them for getting their information hacked. Chun-sik receives a proper message from the school's boss to arrive in Seomun effective immediately. Jong-soo realizes it must be them. Chun-sik takes the call and learns that the Seomun workshop ended up getting robbed. And when he hears Donggu's name, his blood boils as he smashes the phone between his fingers. The scene cuts to Doyle in his typical aura farm, nonchalant Sigma male. I am the protagonist's stride. Stopping before his bike, Doyle senses someone and immediately launches a projectile against the one secretly tailing him. Chun-sik is getting pissed as hell because of his own confusion, demanding his subordinate to speak clearly. As if this wasn't enough, someone smashes their door open. It is Wang Kwaki. Their boss has returned, and with his mere presence, they all lower their bodies to pay their leader great respect. Chun-sik is sweating bullets. He looks like a pussy with a tail between his legs. Around this behemoth, he apologizes for not greeting his boss properly, but Kwakwe cares little about those things and immediately asks about Samun's location on the map, all the while chugging down some liquor. Baffled, Chun-sik inquires in confusion. Kwakwe smashes the bottle against the nearest wall, his intentions remaining hidden. As the scene cuts to his interaction with Ji Cheol in his detention, Kwakwe is rather disappointed to share a conversation with a cripple who was once a powerful and ruthless gang leader. Holding out his hand against the glass pane, Ji Cheol gives him a menacing look, wishing Kwakwe well for his safety. This is basically his way of saying, "You're about to get your ass kicked to the moon and back." JKL remarks how a small moment can result in a lifetime's worth of injury and pain. His last words noted the existence of a creature as demonic as Satan, living amongst the students of Samun High School. And it is because of that, Kwakwe ordered for an immediate arrangement of his troops to prepare for the battle against Samun High. Now, Doyle is sticking to his American ways and questions if the blonde is the one secretly spying on him. All this time, apparently, Doyle is supposed to be this person's captain, suggesting a connection to his former team. Anyway, things are finally getting serious, with Wang Kwakwe